long. At one end, it kind of, if you stretch your arm out and kind of make your hand look like a claw, he said it looked like a tree uprooted and then tapered off like a snake. Because it was hot, it sparked like a branding iron. And he hovered about the height of a horse above the ground and moved at the speed of a galloping horse across the field. When it came and met up to a rise or a hill, it literally went up over the hill, and that was the last he saw of it. He said the area smelled like that burnt tar, burnt sulfur smell for weeks. And he swore an affidavit out about a year later in the Carlisle County seat, in Carlisle, which is the county seat for Schoharie County, and that story came to us through the Historical Society.
Boy, that's fascinating. There's so many markers there that seem to agree with some of the current accounts. I just have to love that correlation. What an interesting story. Now, Cheryl, let's go to California. You have found from the considerable response to your book just since publication that Californians are proud of their first place ranking among UFO sightings.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. They're very, very, very excited about the fact that they're number one. I don't know if they're really paying attention to the science of what we've got here. On one hand, I saw a lot of critical remarks about it on social media. Well, you might know that a state with all the flakes, of course, they've got all the sightings. Just remarks like that were being made. There were people who were actually very angry that California got that ranking. The funny thing about it is, how do I want to say this? I've had several people come to me and say, well, did they just win a wing? Did they just win by, a little bit? And that's the story that nobody's talking about. They have twice the sightings of Florida and Texas. Give you an example. Florida is number 2, okay? They had, in that 15-year window, they had 7,787 sightings, okay? California, in the same 15-year window, had 15,835, with L.A. County having 3,212. And there was another thing about that, is that California had a lot of its counties in the top 100 of counties, of the 3,027 counties in the United States. A lot of their counties were in the top 100, which is amazing.
It is. That's very, very significant. And, I remember there's one article here by Solange Rayner of Newsmax.com, posted March 29th. She does, with full attribution, note some of the material there from that gentleman at the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, that fellow journalist. But quoting Solange, more than 16,000 UFO sightings have been reported in California from 2001 to 2015, and 3,200 in Los Angeles County. And it goes on.
Did you say 200?
No, 3,200 in Los Angeles County.
All right. See, okay. So when we did the interview, we didn't really want to give out the exact numbers at the time, because we want people to see the book. So when you say, I said about 16,000, it's actually 15,835 to be exact. And,
wow.
And also for L.A. County, it's 3,212. Let me give you a couple of them up there. Okay, Los Angeles, it's 3,212. San Diego is 1393. Orange County is 1,271. Riverside is 958. San Bernardino 836. Okay, and those counties are in the top 10 for the United States.
That is very important. And, and the close proximity to the ocean, too, is a factor. I'm thinking of Preston Dennett and his research, outstanding. And he's mentioning UFOs appearing from under the water. So do you consider perhaps the water there a bit of a major factor?
Well, yeah. What's interesting about Los Angeles, and I only learned this about about a month ago. I was watching a documentary when I was up on. I have a Roku. I got rid of normal TV. I got streaming. I've got internet, and I use, a Roku box.
Right.
And I was out on Netflix, and I happened to get this one of these UFO Secrets Revealed kind of documentaries, right? And I was watching it, and they were telling a story about Los Angeles County. And Los Angeles County, the Los Angeles Valley, has had formations of UFO sightings since before we had manned flight. We're talking back to the 1880s, 1890s.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so that rather surprised me. So when I started looking, we hear sometimes about the Battle of L.A., that sighting they had in 1942.
Yes.
This is something's been going on in that L.A. Valley area and off the coast around Catalina Island, that sort of thing. There's been a lot of activity there apparently for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, MUFON and Newfork data records don't really go well back into those that period of time. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, I want to report for the last 40 years." Well, that sounds nice on paper, but the data isn't there. A lot of people think the data's there, but it's not.
Yes, and that confirmatory information is so important. Now, I have a question, too, on this article. The journalist there, Solange Rayner, does have a quote. Fox News reported in February that worldwide UFO sightings had hit an all-time high with 104,947 reported sightings on record over the past 100 plus years, end quote. And Cheryl, my question to you is, do you find such an historic global increase in UFO sightings a strongly possible development?
Yeah, I do, because our chart, just for the United States, now throw another 2,000 on top of that. Okay, so we're running right now around 10, as much as 12,000 reported sightings a year. 10,000 is a good number to use. Okay, that everybody feels comfortable with that. About 8,000 of them right now are the United States, and then about another 2,000 are being reported from other countries. But I got a funny feeling there's probably many more sightings out there but not the rest of the world doesn't seem to have the communications that we have here. Maybe they've all got cell phones, but maybe they don't have a reporting service. Okay, I'm going through the Newfork International Directory right now, trying to clean it up so we can do some things, and it's only got about 3,000 records in it. So it's not really huge, but give me a moment. I'll pull a number up for you here. California, United States, right? Okay.
Yes.
Now, here's the United States for the last 15 years. Okay, and I'll give you that number. Bear with me a moment. I have to get there myself on the paper here.
Cheryl, while you do that, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Continue. I'm here. Okay. I'm here. Here we are. All right. In 2001, the total for the United States was about 3,479. We'll say about 3,500. Okay. In 2002, it was about 3,542. Excuse me. In 2003, 2004, 2005, it was around 41, 42, 4,500. Okay, it's going up, and then get up around 2007, it's about 6,000 a year. We break 8,000 a year, 87, 88 in 2008. 9,019 in 2009, 8,571 in 2010, and then we make another bump upwards to 10,000 for 2011, 14,077 in 2012. It dips back down to 12,900 in 2013 and hovers, it's 13,900 in 2014 and 11,800 in 2015. I don't know if you've ever looked at charts on these sightings, even back in the 70s and 80s, if you were to pull into those numbers. There's a humping effect about every 6 to 7 years. There's like a humping effect. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. And it's a rather consistent phenomena. And even though we're seeing an upward trend on these charts with modern reporting numbers, you still sort of see that humping effect of cycles of more sightings and less sightings.
Cheryl, do you think there's a connection between those who have less fear of coming out and making reports of sightings, and being ridiculed, called crazy, whatever it may be, and that could be a statistical change where more people in the United States are more open to the subject of ET, the intelligence life out there and so forth? What do you think?
I think since there's been a lot of online capability, and I think I'll tell you an artifact of reporting that I've observed. See, what season of Ancient Aliens are we in right now?
Wow.
Sixth season, maybe seventh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you go back about that, there seems to be a pickup of about, they started around 2000, I think it was. I'm sorry, 2007, I believe it was. Okay. Well, there's been an uptick since that period of time. People became aware of it and started saying, they watch Ancient Aliens and say, well, yeah, I buy into that. And then they go out and do some searching online, and they find the online databases, and either they report something they saw a long time ago, or they report something their mother or grandmother confessed on their deathbed. So there's a lot of what I call retro reporting out there in the databases. Okay, so that's where you see the report. If you go in the databases, particularly in New Fork, if you see a report from the 1950s or 1960s, most of the time those reports are something that is being reshared, and they don't always have a really solid date, but they have a general idea. They know what year, maybe roughly the summer versus a particular month or week or something like that. I see a lot of that.
Boy, that's intriguing.
I'm sorry, Patrice. Just one more quick question that I'll. Do you think that a lot of these sightings could be top secret military craft? And what is your thoughts about back engineering, the possibility that we have retrieved craft, and this could be a result of back engineering?
I did a study in the book, and this was my own swag. I'll probably take a lot of criticism for it. I eliminated off the chart of all the shapes that I thought might possibly be military aircraft. Okay? I eliminated them from a count. And then I came up with a count of the really oddball-shaped craft. And part of the name of the article was The Truth Was in the Shapes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay? I'm sorry. I don't believe our military has flying balls of fire. I don't believe our military has craft that look like a light bulb flying sideways. Okay, triangle. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy a triangle, but I think there's also what I call other folks flying this triangle. I saw a triangle back in 2013, and the corroborated sighting was a nurse coming out of her shift at 3:30 in the morning, about the same time I was getting back from the newspaper from putting the night edition to bed. And I saw this thing. It's 2 football fields long, 3 stories deep, and it was flying leisurely, blotting out the clear summer sky, and just leisurely flying over my town. And it was amazing. Okay, if we have something like that, then I feel our black budget dollars have been spent well. If we don't have something like that, we're in trouble.
Great point. Cheryl, do you think that perhaps 6% of the sightings represent exotic craft rather than terrestrial craft?
Yes.
Boy, that's fascinating.
Yeah, most investigators think the numbers around. Ben Moss, chief investigator for Virginia, he'll quote you a number around 5%. Most of the other investigators, the number comes in around 5 to 7%. In our book, we say, based on this little formula that I came up with, we think around 6% is a safe number. Now, please understand something, and your listeners have to take this into account. Remember one thing. There's a thing called the Friedman what we call the Friedman factor. This is named after Stanton Friedman. 1 in 10 people reports what they see. Now, at conventions, Stanton Friedman will have the audience raise their hand. Have you seen a UFO? And almost everybody in the audience puts their arm up. And then he has people out there as counters, and he'll say, how many of you reported them? And 90% of the hands go down. Okay, so about 10%, 1 in 10. Okay, so if we take my number of 121,000 sightings in the last 15 years, times that by 10, that's 1.2 million. So instead of 8,000 sightings a year, we're probably having more like 80,000 sightings per year. And that's what's not being talked about. That's why we need disclosure.
Absolutely, so people won't feel stigmatized if they've witnessed such an important event. And I noticed here in the material that, and hopefully I'm citing correctly, you found there was an average of 6% for any one state of unspecified cities where someone will note, I don't feel comfortable telling you, I've been asked not to tell you, as you referenced before.
Well, that number was between 2.5% to 4%.
Oh, okay, thank you, 2.5 to 4. That's still quite major, though, when you think of the stats.
Yeah, it is. It adds up.
It surely does. Now, also, regarding your blog, Linda had referenced that many people feel a little uncomfortable when the accounts approach the very current year. And that's one reason, too, you include vintage stories. Is that still the case?
Could you repeat what you're asking here? I didn't quite follow you.
When you give your examples, I've noticed both historical ones, and also those from past centuries or decades. Are you still giving that mixture with the realization that some of your readers might get nervous if they begin reading details of an account, perhaps near where they live?
Something my editors noticed and Linda noticed early on in the column. Now, understand, we've been doing it a little over 3 years. July it was 3 years, so we've been doing it 3.5 years. Okay, so that's a weekly article for 3.5 years. And some people were telling me when I first started, well, you'll run out of material in a couple of months. You know, and no, I didn't run out of material. Sometimes I run out of ideas of how to present the material, but I have not run out of material. One of the things we discovered, people really liked the articles of like Civil War UFO sightings or UFO sightings in the time of Lincoln. They really dig those stories. Where they seem to get a little uncomfortable is when we start getting into more recent, we'll say in the 90s and early 2000s, they seem to get really uneasy about that. But if I'm reporting a sighting from the 50s or 60s, they seem to be very comfortable with it for some reason. It was just something my editors noticed on some of the email responses and things like that we got. One thing we did notice, though, when I started getting invitations, and I don't do this very often, but every now and then I'll get an invitation to drop over to somebody's family reunion or something like that and have a burger with them, you know, and they want me to introduce me to their Uncle Ralph or their Aunt Susie or something, okay? And I'll go over there and, you know, press the flash and say hi, and they'll sit me down with that aunt or uncle or grandparent, and they say, hey, Grandpa Jones wants to tell you a story about something he saw as a kid, you know, or Aunt Susie has this story to tell you. And you can always tell by the look in their eyes. It's like talking to a combat veteran about their time in combat. You can see it's real serious. They are not feeding you a line. There's something serious going on there. You can see it in their eyes. And what I found out over the last 3 years, families are handing down their UFO stories like family heirlooms. Yeah, it's wild. I had a lady come to me, an 85-year-old lady came to me last summer or this past spring, and she told me about two of her great aunts when they were school children in Cameron, New York, which is a little bit south of Bath, New York. It's out in western New York. Now, even now, it's pretty rural out there. It's pretty wild. In the 1880s, it was frontier. Trust me. Okay, these kids had. It's the classic story. You know, when I was your age, I walked 7 miles to school. You know, it was one of these things. So all these farm children gathered every day, and they walked like 7 miles to the schoolhouse. Well, it was spring, and they had to cross over this bridge over a somewhat swollen creek because it was a spring runoff. And down gathering water and picking up stones were these little bald men with big eyes wearing blue jumpsuits. They call them coveralls. And these guys waved to the kids, like motioned to them to come down and see them. And the kids were terrified that these guys went running home. Okay? Now, little 3-foot guys with big eyes and blue jumpsuits, does that sound familiar? Okay?
Yes, it does.
And so I published that story, and I had half a dozen historians in upstate New York pick up my story and publish it in their historian newsletters up in upstate New York. You know, it was really interesting. Again, people are interested in these old stories. It's the modern stories. Well, what do we have? For the last 50 to 70 years, we've had this flavor of ridicule.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't use real people's names in my column. But if it's very clear that they're dead, then I will use their name if I have it. Okay, my editor's good with that. But every one of these are most of these things we take out of the databases. We don't have a name. It's anonymous. Okay, so I'll throw a name on there and I'll tell the story. Bob and Sue, Susie and Tom were going out for a walk, you know, and they saw this. The dog started shivering and barking and pointing off, you know, to the north, and there it was, you know, something to that effect, you know. And that's kind of how I do some of these stories. I'm an entertainment writer. I'm not a pure journalist. I have my degrees in entertainment writing, so I tend to put a little more flair to it. And since I don't go by the same journalistic code of who, what, when, where, why, I can't say who because these things are somewhat anonymous. And I can't tell you why. If I did know why these things were out there, I'd be getting a Nobel Prize. But I can tell you what, when, and where. So I'll tell a nice story and relate it the best I can. And we've had a lot of very positive mail on this stuff, and I've had a lot of people come back to me with emails and saying, let me share with you what my mother confessed on her deathbed, or Dad told us in the hospital. You know, a lot of people, when they felt they had nothing left to lose, they started coming clean with this. And we heard some of this to do with, like, Roswell people who
Yes.
witnessed Roswell confessing on their deathbeds and things, you know. So
I think that's a wonderful practice. Pardon me. That's truly a wonderful practice for protecting both the privacy, indeed, and the safety of those individuals. I think that's wonderful. And now, our show is about to conclude. Cheryl, you will be speaking at an upcoming conference. Did you wish to mention which one?
yes, it is it's the Erie, Pennsylvania MUFON conference. It's a one-day event on the 29th of April. It's in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's at the convention center there. And if you Google the Erie, Pennsylvania MUFON, you'll get all the information on it.
Sounds not to be missed. And again, I want to
It's a one-day event. It's a one-day event. But we have Nick Pope coming and we got a lot of other notable people there, so it should be a lot of fun.
Certainly sounds like it. And Cheryl, thank you again for a fascinating and informative hour. So appreciated. Thank you, Bill, for your excellent comments and questions. And listeners, thank you for joining us this evening. Also, don't forget to listen to the 2 excellent programs immediately following on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, KGRAradio.com. The next program is Truth Theorem Radio Unleashed, and then Jill Hansen's Q Science Project. Good night.
There are many sounds in your day-to-day life. There are sounds that wake you up. Sounds that make you smile. Sounds that energize you. And sounds that help you relax. But there are some sounds that can alert you to danger and can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you information about severe weather events, Amber Alerts, or other emergencies in your area. With critical information from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know, wherever you are. For more information, visit ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
If your home has hard water, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes, damaging your appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars each year. You can eliminate limescale in the entire house with HydroCare products available at Wave Home Solutions. Easy and efficient with no maintenance, no salts, no chemicals, and no coils. And you can buy with confidence from Wave Home Solutions. Performance guaranteed. Just go to bestwater411.com. That's bestwater411.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
And now, only on KGRA Radio, this is the Starborn Connection. Join your hosts, Michael Austin Melton and Julia Yesner Weiss.
Good evening, everybody. I want to say hello to all our listeners around the world and on YouTube. This is Starburn Connection Radio on KGRA and I want to say hello to my co-host tonight, Michael Melton. How are you?
Oh, doing great, Julia. And I want to say thank you, all you YouTubers, for listening. We enjoy you being here.
And hello, Bill Skywatcher.
Hello, Julia.
Our producer.
How are you tonight? I'm doing great, and we are streaming live on P&K Space Imaging on YouTube. So hello to Paul and Keith that do tremendous work doing the moon stream. I mean, I regard them as great friends, and they really do a tremendous job at the work they do, providing the video of the moon. So,
oh yeah, I checked it out. It's awesome,
isn't it? And hello to all of them there, and all of the listeners here on KGRARadio.com as well. And looking forward to a really great guest tonight. So, Julia, there you go.
Take it away.
Well, I am so excited. We're having tonight, our guest is Don Daniels, and I'm so excited to have him. Don has always been one to explore outside the box. From early on, he had an interest in cosmology, life after death, pyramids, nature, anything that flies, and much more. Not content to simply read about such subjects, Don would experiment wherever possible, building scale model pyramids to test theories, for instance. Don has recently retired as a pilot with a major airline, but has never lost his curiosity about how the universe works. A Rosicrucian mystical student, he has combined mystical principles with UFO ET experiences to develop a larger world view, which he shares in his book, A Commercial Airline Pilot by Trade and a Mystic at Heart. Don has always had a wide variety of interests as well. It was on his very first UFO research outing that Don had an experience that led to the writing of his book, Evolution Through Contact, Becoming a Cosmic Citizen. A very high-quality interactive UFO encounter occurred that night where the group flashed lights at the craft and a flashback and more. This triggered a period of philosophical introspection into the meaning of other life in the universe and our place in that larger universe, a journey that ultimately led to contact with people from other worlds. Don has also presented a variety of forums and most recently at major conferences. He runs a weekly radio show on Blog Talk Radio Monday evenings called Becoming a Cosmic Citizen, which explores a variety of subjects ranging from UFO and ET contact to spirituality, mysticism, consciousness, and more. You can find that out at Galactic U Radio Network. Well, you have a big resume, Don. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. This is kind of a switch here to be the guest instead of the host, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I know. And it's, I know Don from John Bertelli, our friend from Light Language. There's a whole group in Colorado, and I got Don through John, and I thank John so much because, Don, you sent me an outline, and I can't believe it. It's like, whoa, So we're gonna need 2 or 3 shows for everything that needs to be discussed, but we're gonna start, I guess, with the progression of contact events. So tell us your story.
Okay, maybe before we start, I should clarify how people can find my show. GalacticU.com is one website that links to it, and the other is my website, BecomingACosmicCitizen.com, and there'll be links to the radio shows there. How did it all start? My goodness. I remember clear back in 6th grade, I was bored, I would fidget. I was probably ADD. I'm glad they hadn't invented Ritalin back then. And the teacher was probably 30 years out of date on the science, and the textbook was 20 years out of date, or vice versa, I'm not sure. But in 6th grade, I had my own subscription to Science Newsletter. And so I was always correcting the teacher on science, and I'd come in the next day with the appropriate copy of Science Newsletter and say, see, at that time, I didn't understand the social graces of not embarrassing the teacher on an almost daily basis. But, the truth was always more important than anything else. And they gave me extra challenges to kind of keep me occupied. I was reading. They were having to borrow books from the middle school library to keep me challenged, and they gave me special projects like running the movie projector, and later on I got to go down to the principal's office and do those SRI special modules. I think they were testing people to try and identify the kids that they wanted to channel into the space program and stuff. But anyway, my major daydream there was that a UFO landed out in the schoolyard, and I went out to meet the people. There was never, ever any fear. It was just like going out to meet friends. And so that's where it started. And I think as I get more and more in tune with my higher self, I think I was actually going to night school even back then, and just don't remember. But always had the interest in UFOs, read lots of books and stuff, and then as I was on my career path towards becoming an airline pilot, I was reminded that it's, that talking about UFOs can kind of end your career, and I'm going, really? But I kind of put it on the back burner until I got hired by the airline, and had been on for a year, got off probation, etc. And then I started researching. I was looking for different groups. I thought I was interested in doing some UFO research, but the groups I found just didn't quite resonate with me. So I kind of floated on that for a few years, and then I heard a lecture by Dr. Stephen Greer, and this was back in 1990. It would have been 99. And so many of the things I'd been trying to figure out just suddenly clicked. They just made sense, like, why all the secrecy? Well, it's because they don't run around the universe burning Exxon Jet A, so they're not going to make any money for the fossil fuel companies if we have their propulsion and energy systems, was one of the major things. But anyway, I went on a field outing with them in the summer of '99, and the very first night in the field, and we had pre-study that we had to do, all kinds of reading and stuff and preparation. And I'd been a Rosicrucian mystic for a number of years before that, and I think I started that in 1980. And so I was kind of psychologically prepared and open-minded. And so the very first night, this thing came streaking in down in the southwest like a meteor, but it looked enough different. It really caught my eye. It was more of an energy streak with a plasma trail rather than like a meteor with the tail spreading out behind it and chunks breaking off. And so that caught my eye, and then it just stopped instantly, just instant blue-white light, bigger and brighter than Venus down in the southwest. And I said, whoa, that's no meteor. And Dr. Greer took his laser pointer and went flash, flash, and it went flash, flash back at us. And I go, cool. Somebody else picked up a million candle power spotlight, flash, flash, and it went flash, flash. Well, I was just about to suggest that we try a number sequence, like a prime number sequence, and see if it would pick up on what the sequence was, and then start to alternate with them. So like we do 1, 2, 3, 5, and then pause and see if they would do 7, and then we do 11. And if that happened, if we could start to alternate numbers, that would definitely prove higher intelligence. But before I could even suggest that, this pale blue-white spotlight came down out of the craft. It was like about the color of faded blue jean material. It was not painfully bright or anything. It was actually kind of dim, but it was bright enough everybody could see it. And it was just like about a 40-foot circle on our group. We had 18 people there that year. We were, airline pilots, medical doctors, scientists, university professors, etc. It was almost all professional people. And this spotlight right on our group, everybody saw that, and about half of us could see this faint scan line go through it, like on Star Trek when the bridge gets scanned. But that was red. This was blue, close enough. And then, really weird, the light beam retracted back into the craft. It got shorter. I have no idea how they did that. And I said, cool, we've just been scanned. And and then I got to thinking, right about now, they probably know more about me than I know about me.
It's a good thing you weren't wearing a red shirt. That's a Star Trek reference.
Right, don't beam down wearing the red shirt. They usually get sacrificed. No, and there was never any fear. It seemed, very peaceful. And, of course, that night, the BBs were just bouncing around in my brain, and it was hard to go to sleep. But, I'm thinking, did I delude myself? Was I seeing what I expected to see or anything? I said, no, everybody saw it. So if it was delusion, it was mass delusion. And, could it have been one of ours? Well, ours generally either try to hide or to scare you. Our covert military ones and stuff, I don't think would be carrying on a friendly interchange with us. So the most logical solution was the obvious one, that it was somebody from somewhere else came by to say hi. We were, of course, meditating and putting out the conscious invitation, thought projecting and remote viewing, trying to attract them. So we were doing some things, radio signals and stuff, some protocols to try and attract them. But, best I can tell, that was some of our star cousins coming by and saying hi. And then the thing just gone.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have to confirm that, because I've had the same CE5 experience with meditating and seeing huge flashes of light, huge bright white lights. I didn't have the blue beam, but I had the huge rectangle light that just poured out, and of course, the sequences of the flashes. So I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was, in that very first night, I went from believing to an almost certain knowing. And that's a paradigm shift. It's kind of like, I'm sure a number of the members of the audience have been in an earthquake. And even though intellectually the ground which you take for granted as being granite, when it violently shakes beneath you, and I was in the World Series earthquake out in the San Francisco Bay Area, that was a pretty good one. It just kind of leaves you a little off balance for a few days. It shifts your paradigm. And that's what this did to me. I was kind of off balance for a couple of days, and I was starting to feel like I was starting to see very subtle energy form humanoid shapes around the group, around the outside of our circle. And I'm going, am I really seeing that or not? And if you stare too hard, you'd lose them. And I could see them better without my glasses. I guess the glasses kind of filter a little of the UV and stuff. So, I'm just wondering, am I really doing that or not? And everybody was going down to Donna's Rock Shop and Healing Center in Moffat. We were out near Crestone. And they said, oh, Don, you need to go in and get a healing massage or treatment. I said, well, okay, I'm here doing all kinds of new stuff. I might as well. I've never done that before. So Donna and her daughter worked on me for like 2 hours with the big crystal singing bowls. They had 2 different frequencies, and the harmonics between them just vibrated every cell in my body. I told her, I don't really know what this is all about, but open me up so I can more accurately perceive what's really going on out there. Make me more perceptive, whatever. And that same night out in the field, I am very definitely seeing a group of 5 foot tall humanoid shapes just to the east of our circle. And it was like thousands of little scintillating blue-white firefly lights, kind of like the static on the old-fashioned analog TVs, but enough that you could make out the humanoid profile. And Dr. Greer was talking when he took a breath, which is rare for him. I said, Steve, do you see what I see? And he says, oh, yeah, I've been watching them for a few minutes. I said, okay. So we all got up and walked over to the east side of the circle and lined up and in a very non-threatening pose with our arms out and our palms open, to where we were, kind of demonstrating that we were not threatening in any way. And then there seemed to be one of them paired up with each one of us, and I kind of felt sorry for mine because I was brand new at this and still kind of conflicted and trying to find my paradigm and everything. But it was about 5 feet in front of me and about 5 feet tall, and the head was slightly pointy chin, but not the classic gray. The eyes were kind of almond-shaped, a little bit kind of oriental, not the big bug eyes. The nose and mouth were similar to ours, but a little smaller proportionally. The neck was about as big as my wrist. And I could see the upper chest kind of reminded me of a chimpanzee, kind of lean and wiry. And, we didn't want to talk out loud because 18 of us at once, it'd be just a babble. So I'm just thought projecting, just meditating and thought projecting telepathically who I am, what we're trying to do, that we're trying to initiate some peaceful citizen diplomacy. And then I went receptive to see what kind of a message I was going to get. And I've been told I'm a much better sender than receiver at the moment. I'm working on being a better telepathic receiver, but I expected like a voice in the middle of my head giving me a few words, a sentence or two, some kind of a verbal message. And instead what I got was two very powerful, very distinct emotions, unconditional love and intense gratitude.
Wow.
And I went, whoa. Wow. And so, again, the BBs were bouncing around in my brain that night, and I'm going, was this real or not? Well, the message was entirely different from what I expected, and the format of the message was entirely different from what I expected. And so, the odds are it was a very real experience. And later in the week, we saw some more of those, and one night I got what just felt like a ram dump. You remember the Star Trek episode where history is just spooling by, and they got to jump through the portal at the right time?
Yeah,
it was like that, only like an order of magnitude faster, just whoom. It just felt like I got a ram dump loaded into me. And I'm going, whoa, I didn't get any of that on the way in. I'm assuming it'll come out at the appropriate times. And it was interesting because a couple of years later, I was working with a brand new pilot. I was a line check airman at the time, and he was a brand new captain, so I was checking him out in the airplane after he finished his simulator training. The only night of the trip that we had over 12 hours where we were legal to go get a drink was down in San Antonio. And so we got in like 10:30, and we changed clothes real quick, and we go running down to the Riverwalk looking for something that's still open so he could celebrate his upgrade. And we found this bad music coming from the back of this little courtyard. And I said, well, at least they're open. So we wander in there, and it was a little place called Tequila Mockingbird.
That sounds like a great place.
It was clever. And it was Mad Dog Monday open mic night, and it was mostly college kids doing their lost love laments and stuff. And then a guy probably in his 40s or so got up and read a poem called Star Child, and it just triggered something in me. And boom, I'm grabbing napkins and I'm writing poetry stanzas down. And I hadn't written poetry since college, and it wasn't that good back then. And this thing is just flowing out of me almost faster than I can write it down. And of course, I'd been involved with the Disclosure Project and the National Press Club presentation that we did with the 20-some witnesses. I helped staff that. I was there. I know all of those witnesses. So I had been kind of cogitating how to put this all together, and it just came flooding through. Got back to the hotel. I'm starting to fall asleep. Another stanza or two had come flowing in. And I'm going, either I'm going to fall asleep and forget it, or I'm going to work out falling asleep and forgetting it, and it's going to keep me up. So turn on the light, write it down. There's another one, turn it on, write it down. And then a few more came in the morning, and my first poem was almost finished at that point. And all I had to do basically was kind of balance up the meter and tempo. And I can read it for you if you want.
Yeah. I'd like to hear it.
Okay.
Okay, it's called Friends in High Places. A bold new world awaits us, a spinning on this earth, an end to wanton poverty, a time of happiness and mirth. Abundant, free, non-polluting energy, an end to hunger and disease. The possibilities are endless. Floating cars, if you please. I have met with friends in high places. All this is possible, you see. It has already been given to us, and should be cause for much glee. But there are those among us who do not want these things to pass. They would much rather stick it to us in the gas. My friends and neighbors we betray. Their technology was given, stolen, taken. Also these greedy people, huge profits could be making. The relationship was adversely shaken. Fossil fuels we keep on burning. The environment, it is a crying. Big money these people are making, while Mother Earth, she is a dying. Minions of darkness have caused us this plight. The only weapon we have is to expose them to the light. Legions of covert workers will then march out of their cave. Humanity will have to grow up and learn how to behave. There is a new golden age a-comin', of that we can be sure. We are working very hard, so you can stand the cure. The angels are on our side, that I truly suspect. Future generations untold our actions will effect. The world will get a lot bigger when we all realize we are not alone in this universe and see it with new eyes. If we fix our problems and do this as we should, we then will be invited to join the cosmic neighborhood. We have friends in high places. They want us to succeed. It is most important for us humans to persevere in this momentous deed. You can certainly help us in our epic quest. Join and work with us if you can stand the tests. A new universe awaits us, a chance to visit many places, an opportunity to meet new people with many different faces. New cultures, peoples, places, a much bigger view of creation, a future to look forward to with hope and great elation.
Wow.
Nice. Very nice.
So that's like they gave you a download, do you think?
Yep.
Is that what that is? Yeah, it's all about ascension, isn't it? I'll tell you
what though, Don. It wasn't a crazy thing you did, waking up and writing down the stanzas. I am a songwriter, a member of the Songwriters Guild, and I used to carry not only a writing pad but one of those little pocket recorders. And I'm driving down I-95. Oh, there's another line. So I'd pick up the recorder and spew it into there. And you did the right thing.
Oh yeah. And there's a number of more poems in the book. Julia I sent her a PDF copy of the book, and she's read it all. So you've read all of those poems. What'd you think, Julia?
Well, they're all downloads, and they're all messages. To me, it's our space brother message of a new age that is possible, and they're very, very good. But did you ever write poetry before? Is this just a new thing that came? Because that does happen with contact. Like you have new talents that you never thought.
Yeah, I mean, I just did school assignment type poetry. Not very much of it, and not that great back then. And this is when it started. When I got triggered there. So.
Wow.
I think the download and maybe the conscious override or whatever is one of the ways they communicate with us. As a matter of fact, inventors have noticed that when somebody gets an idea for something, especially some new technology that'll help the environment or something, they better work fast and get it developed and patented, because 10 or 15 other people around the world that got the same download, because our friends on high want this technology into our world to help the environment. And so they'll give it to 10 or 15 scientists at once, and you better scramble if you want to be the first one out.
You're not kidding.
Oh, wow.
So anyway.
I was going to say, I think I'm looking at the outline, and I think you were pretty good with that. So I think the next thing is you talk about remote viewing and out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we make contact, one of the essential factors for making contact is to raise our consciousness up to a higher level, to a higher frequency vibration, to where we can meet them halfway. Most of the extraterrestrials are fifth dimension or above, which is basically just a higher consciousness frequency. And it's difficult for them to come all the way down to third dimensional density to meet us. And it's kind of like if we went down to Skid Row and we're trying to talk to the bums about quantum physics, it's not going to go far. And so we have to make the effort to reach up and try and meet them halfway. And when we do, they notice it. And when we put out the request, there has to be a request, then they will respond. And, I've had encounters in remote view. There was one time in Joshua Tree where we were working on remote viewing during the afternoon. He targeted the box, and we'd all try and remote view what it was, write down our impressions and stuff, and then we'd open the box and see what it was and compare notes as to how well we'd done. And as we were finishing up there, he said, after dinner, get with your car groups and everybody bring something to their group in a bag or a box or something and take turns working on each other's targets. And so my group, everybody brought like a bag of potato chips or a candy bar they just bought at the convenience store, and it had no vibrations, no connection to anything for me, and I just was not hitting it all, and I'm just kind of frustrated, like it's not working tonight. And then the last exercise we were supposed to do was remote view what was going to happen out in the field that night, out in Joshua Tree. And so I was frustrated, and I just kind of let go. And the moment I let go, this thing came flooding in. Now, normally my remote views are kind of like a faded out old color movie that's, pretty washed out, and you can kind of see what's going on, but not a whole lot of detail. Mm-hmm. This very, very detailed. I saw a golden orange craft, and I just started talking as it was coming in. I just jumped right in and started talking to the group what I was seeing. Golden orange craft down in the southwest, midway between the trail and the road, about 5 miles away. It'll stay around for several minutes. It'll interact with our lights a little bit, and we had one of the professional Ed Dames remote viewers in the group, and she was getting kind of upset that us amateurs were doing better than she was. But anyway,
yeah,
she was all, and as we get out to the field, it was already there. And the people who got there a little earlier than us are already filming it. We got some good video of it, by the way. And it's lighting up the ridge line below it, and based on the map and the direction, that was just about 5 miles away from us. About the only thing I missed, it was a golden orange plasma glow. It was kind of top-shaped, and off to the side, 3 or 4 little like scout craft popped into view and then took off. I did not see that part in the remote view, but the rest of it very, very accurate. After about 5 minutes, the fighter jets came scorching in, probably from 29 Palms. We were pretty close to that. And the craft winked out, and you watch, and then I see this flash streak, just like on Star Trek or Star Wars. I saw that with my naked eye, and it showed up on our home video. And I'm going, whoa. Yeah. That Spielberg and Roddenberry and those guys know a little more than they're letting on.
Oh, yeah. I've always thought that myself.
Yeah, so that was a pretty high quality encounter that I very accurately remote viewed. And our protocol is basically remote view, go out into space, look around, try and find somebody, maybe expand your consciousness like a sphere until you encounter somebody. Basically knock on the door, introduce yourself, and ask if you can interact, and then invite them to come back to where the group is if it's safe and convenient for them. And sometimes somebody will say, "Hey, I'm coming in from the west or whatever," and we'll look out there, and here comes a craft. They follow our consciousness just like it was a navigation system for their autopilot. They can follow you right in. And but anyway, I was getting. The last year I went out there, I was getting kind of frustrated with the way the group had become kind of groupie, cultish, and egos were out of control and stuff. And I was
that ruins everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, he wasn't walking his own talk anymore, and I just I almost left midweek. But last night of the outing, and we'd been up till 1 or 2 in the morning all week. Second time we were supposed to do this meditation, I just didn't have the energy for it. But I was pretty good at just settling into that silence between the breaths and connecting at that level. And then, so I just settled into that silence between the breaths, and I just mentally thought projected, come on down and play. Because over and over they've demonstrated a sense of humor. And then I just added as an afterthought, or beam me up. Instantly. And it was like waking up from anesthesia where there's no sense of time passage. I was on what appeared to be the deck of a craft, and I was surrounded by 10 or 12 of these little 3-foot-tall crustacean guys. Faces reminded me of a crawdad, but they had a very skinny neck, skinny arms, skinny legs, skinny body. Pinch your hands. You could hear this gentle clack, clack, clack around the room as they were working. and their vocalization sounded like a throat clicking, like the Bushmen of the Kalahari, which made me ponder, where did the Bushmen get that very unique throat clicking language? And I've got some clues on that, which we can get into a little later. But anyway, a couple of them came over to me, and I'm thinking, man, I must be terribly intimidating to these guys because I'm like twice as tall as they are. So I did like you do with kids. I sat down on the floor. I got down to their level to show that I was not a threat to them. And the concern, the curiosity, the compassion was just palpable. I totally knew I was safe, which is, you'd think being surrounded by guys with pincher hands would be a little intimidating, but I totally knew I was safe. And a couple of them came over, and one of them was very gently touching my arm, just kind of feeling from my shoulder down, like when a blind person feels your face to get an idea what you look like, how they very carefully feel the contour of your face.
Right.
And about that time, back in the circle on the ground, somebody spotted a meteor and shouted for everybody, look, snapped me back into my body so hard it physically hurt.
Wow.
I'm going, no, I want to go back. And, after that jolt, I couldn't reestablish the connection. But the whole thing lasted maybe 15 or 20 seconds. I call that my close encounter of the crustacean kind. And
so were you like this reality? When you were there, it wasn't a dream. It was like, this 3D reality.
Well, pretty close. And I thought it was a remote view, but I took a workshop on out-of-body workshop with William Bullman when he came through town a couple of years after that. And I was telling him about the experience, and he says, you could feel him touching you? I said, yeah. I said, so, well, then that was an out-of-body. Your astral body had to be there for you to feel it. Otherwise, it would have just been a conscious viewing. And I said, so I had a spontaneous launch. And so that was an interesting little deal. But I think in a way it was a test to see how I'd react to something totally unexpected and somebody that's significantly different than us. And I didn't panic. I didn't lash out at them or anything. I approached them with respect, and I think I probably passed the test there that night.
You sure did. Wow. I think that's also a lesson. Like when I think about becoming a cosmic citizen, I think that no matter what another being looks like, it could be very frightening to us. Something that looks like a crustacean, or something that's just totally different. But to have that unconditional love for that being, no matter what they look like, I mean, that's something we haven't yet mastered that in our world.
Oh no! I mean, we're even afraid of people who are different skin color or different religion or live in a different country,
different politics.
I don't know though. We're involved in this for such a long time. I've been in this for at least a decade, and I know Julia's been in it for a while. I don't know whether it would bother me at all to see an unusually looking
not
creature.
You or me, Michael, but some people that aren't.
Well, yeah, people that are not
in the know would freak out, I think.
They certainly would, I believe, yeah.
And actually my definition of that term, my concept of that term human has changed, and I'll get to that in a little bit too. But they are aware of our fears of things that are different, and the plan is that the first ones we have contact with will look very much like us so that we can get used to that. And then when we get comfortable with that, we'll start to be introduced to the ones who are significantly different, on a gradual basis. But they're basically just waiting for us to grow up enough and raise our consciousness enough that we're ready to meet them. They've got a huge planet-wide family reunion planned for us when we're ready.
Well, there's so many people now that are awake and aware. I think they're getting ready. I think they're getting ready for us. Now, also, Don, you introduced me online. I haven't met her personally, but you had, I think, a synchronicity where you ran into this incredible woman. Her name's Tashina, and I listened to a few of her interviews, and oh my God, I'm so impressed with her. And she talks about, I think, willing to be of service to the difference between service to self and service to others and service to the universe. Could you go into how you met Tashina and the whole story there?
Well, actually, that was a discourse that I wrote for a Rosicrucian retreat, a regional retreat, service to self, service to others, service to the universe. I was pondering what was my block. Why was I not getting to the next step, which would be fully physical contact, which I assumed would be a landing event. The door opens, they walk out. We say hi and sit down, have bagels and lox, and talk about the fate of the universe or whatever. So I was wondering, what's my block? Why am I not making it to the next level? And so I did this discourse, and at the end I posed the question, or made this basically the statement that I was willing to be of service to the universe in any way that was in the best interest of humanity and the planet. And I did not put conditions on how that might happen, what it might be. I just said, I'm willing to be of service, and put it out to the universe, and the universe asked a favor. It was interesting, but basically what happened was I met Tashina. Tasha's her legal name. Tashina's her spiritual name, and she's trying to switch everybody to Tashina now. But I met her at another later Rosicrucian retreat, just a weekend thing, and she happened to be staying at the same house I was. I was giving her a ride back and forth to the meetings, and I was talking about some of my UFO experiences. She was kind of surprised that anybody speaks so openly about it. She was pretty shy and reserved, and she was in the back bedroom. I was out on the hide-a-bed. But anyway, I told her about some of my experiences, and she wondered how many people had similar experiences. And so that day at the meeting during the lunch break, I said, hey, everybody, just for the benefit of one of our members, I'd like to ask how many of you have had some kind of a UFO or ET encounter. About half the hands went up. I said, thank you very much, carry on. And she's like, whoa. And she started to tell me about an experience she had back in her youth where she was, her stepdad was in the Air Force, and she had been talking about some experience on the base radio station, and she's never fully explained what that was, but she said when she came out, there was a Project Blue Book officer waiting to talk to her. And she thought, it's just a nice guy wants to know what happened. And she said it went downhill from there, and she actually had to hide out for a number of years. She had to go underground, literally underground. She said she lived for several years inside Mount Shasta. Think about that one for a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, then she did come out. She was living mostly with the Native American tribes and talking only with the shaman and the medicine men, primarily was the only one she was confiding in. But part of her mission is to create curriculum for the new generation of indigo and crystal kids, the very connected, tuned-in kids that are just bored stiff in school. They don't learn the same way that they used to teach us back in the 50s and 60s. These kids are very psychic, very tuned in, and they get bored stiff in school because they're so far ahead of the curriculum. And so one of her missions here that she came for was to create school curriculum for these kids to teach them the way they learn. She says it's a travesty that they dumb them down with Ritalin and drug them into normalcy so the teachers can handle them instead of figuring out how to teach them in a way that challenges them.
Oh, I believe that, yeah.
And so she had to go into the big city, in this case Phoenix, to get her master's in education so that she would have the credentials to create school curriculum that could be adopted around the country. And when she got into the big city, she was totally overwhelmed by what we would call mainstream society. And she was literally sitting on the curb crying, and somebody looked at her and said, fresh off the res. But she was told, and I believe it was by her guide, she says she only takes orders from the angels and source, but somebody up the chain told her to go out to Colorado to find someone who could help her. And she came out and found me. Well, she didn't totally let on during that meeting, but I said that, hey, a friend of mine, Mark Kimmel, is putting on a workshop in a month and a half for people who've had encounters, and especially if they're having trouble dealing with it. And I said, I think we've still got one opening, and are you interested? And she kind of hemmed and hawed, and I called Mark. He said, yep, we still got one spot left. And so she says, okay, I'll be there. And then she almost chickened out, but she did come. And so Friday night, we just get together, have dinner, get acquainted. And she's sitting in the corner just kind of playing with her food, not eating much. And Heidi told me, I had to show her how to use the ATM. And I'm going, whoa, fresh off the res.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, we set the basic ground rules, basic confidentiality. You can talk in generalities, but not specifics about somebody unless they give permission. Listen with an open mind. Don't ridicule. And then we would share some of our experiences to kind of break the ice and let them know it's safe to talk. And then we'd encourage them to share their experiences. And a lot of these people had UFO encounters or contact experiences that they'd been holding inside for 20 or 30 years. Because of the PSYOPs, disinformation, ridicule campaign. They're afraid they're going to get ridiculed. Everybody think they're crazy. They'll lose their job, etc. And so when they finally have a safe environment, they would ram dump. And when they did, it was like a ton of weight coming off their shoulders. You could literally see their shoulders rising as they finally were able to tell their story. And on Saturday, she was kind of vague and evasive about her story, but we had a misfit in the group. He was a little harsh on the other people, and he'd had an encounter of his own, but I think he wanted confirmation he wasn't crazy, but I don't think he wanted to believe it at the same time. He was all conflicted. He just didn't come back on Sunday, and a couple other people had other commitments. So we had a little smaller, more cohesive group on Sunday. And as we're kind of wrapping up, I just wanted to give her a chance to really get her story off her chest, just for the healing value. And so I said, Tashina, I know there's a lot more to your story than what you've shared so far. Now that you know the group a little better, you care to share a little more? She took a really deep breath and she says, Earth is a very difficult assignment. And my jaw just dropped and my head turned slowly, and I go, ooh, wait a minute. Maybe I've got this backwards. Let's start over. And then she proceeded to tell us that she was not born on this planet. She was dropped off here at an early age, but that she's Octurian, a mid-level ambassador, that she, being fifth dimensional, she does not lose the memory like we do at about age 2 or 3. We kind of lose that direct connection with Source.
Yeah.
That comes down, we forget. And but she doesn't. She's fully aware of who she is, where she came from, why she's here. And so that was the start of an interesting relationship. And she had several issues that she actually needed help with. And, you think, an extraterrestrial would be omnipotent, omniscient, totally in control of everything. Well, for one, she has to kind of travel around the same way we do. She can't just hop in the craft and go somewhere anytime she needs to go someplace. So when she'd go through the airport, she would set off the magnetometers, just body energy, wearing no metal at all.
Yeah.
And they'd be wanding her and patting her down and couldn't figure it out. And it was a huge hassle. We figured out a way to get around that. As mystics, you guys are probably familiar with how you can kind of build just mentally create a bubble around yourself, not quite a sphere, but kind of a pod around yourself, make it reflective, and then anything that somebody's trying to beam at you just reflects off. Mm-hmm. I said, why don't you do that, but make it a skinny one and reflect your own energy back in? You got to take your shoes off to go through the machine, so as you're going through, bleed off the excess energy through your feet down into the floor, and then when you get 10 feet or so out the other side, you can start to open up again. And so she tried that. As a matter of fact, I took her to the airport. I was out on a trip same time she was going back home. And she walks through the magnetometer. It didn't go off. And she looks at me and goes, check. And she would set off dog alarms half a block down the street. I mean,
oh, wow.
Way out ahead of us, they'd start barking at her. And so we talked about that. And she said back in her youth, I think in high school, she was walking home. And a pack of wild dogs, or just a pack of roaming dogs from the neighborhood, whatever, came running after her, attacking.
And
she just went running up to this random apartment that looked occupied, knocked on the door. The guy opens the door, sees the dogs coming, pulls her in, and slams the door just as the dogs are lunging for her legs.
Wow.
And she was terrified of dogs. So we talked about how the dogs will feed off of the fear, and also that her body energy is so different that it gets their attention. And we talked through all of that, and she, after a reunion up at Estes Park, which I sent you a picture of, and it's on my website, becomingacosmiccitizen.com. There, she now is out, and she's giving permission to share pictures. I said we were thinking about taking you for a walk around Evergreen Lake, but a lot of people walk their dogs there. Maybe we should find somewhere else. And she says, nope, I want to try. You sure? Yep. Okay, so we go down, we walk around the lake, and I think she was just telepathically keying off the way we interacted with the dogs, how you kind of mentally say, nice dog, pretty girl, whatever, and just kind of mentally greet the dogs. And about 2/3 of the way around the lake, I looked at her and I said, Tasha, you realize you haven't set off a single dog alarm yet? And she goes, check. And the other thing is that back where her race evolved, the light levels are much lower. So in our environment, it's very bright and uncomfortable, and getting attention from wearing sunglasses indoors. And so I did some research, and I found these sports contact lenses. Nike makes them, for instance, that the tennis players will wear so that they don't have sunglasses bouncing around and falling off their face while they're whacking away. And so got fitted with the it's just a tinted, no correction. Her visual acuity is actually probably twice mine. But she got fitted with these lenses and comfortable without attracting attention. So check, solved another one. But it was funny, as we were planning for this reunion, we set up a Skype connection. She wasn't much of a techno geek. She says back home it's all just direct connection with source and telepathy, and they don't have computers. She said actually computers are slowing down our progression towards being telepathic and psychic. But anyway, we set up this Skype connection, and I could see and hear her. She could see me, but she couldn't hear me. And so I jumped over into the text window, and first of all, I did an echo test. And sure enough, my microphone's going out. I can hear myself. And so I figured it had to be at her end. And so I jumped over in the text window, and I'm typing furiously, and she's asking questions. I'm typing furiously. And she started laughing hysterically. I said, what? What's so funny? And she says, your telepathy's working a lot better than your typing. She's in Arizona. I'm in Colorado. But, that was kind of a paradigm shift, too. Okay, no secrets here. Total honesty is the only way this is going to work, because she can tell if I'm thinking something different than what I'm saying. So mental discipline is important. When I've got several friends now that can read my thoughts as clearly as my words, and so I'm getting quite used to it. But
Don, how did you get interested in the Order of the Rosy Cross?
I had been searching when I was in Spokane working for the FAA. I was going through this midlife crisis, and trying to find some spiritual path, and none of the religions quite seemed to fit for me. And I was had just got on with the airline, and the captain was he's a real character. I think he had to be the character model for Blasny, the pilot in the movie Spaced Invaders, which is one of my favorite comedies. But this guy had this subtle, wry sense of humor. But we had a layover in, I think it was in Fort Worth, and the flight attendants were at the same hotel. We all went across the street to a rib place called Galen's Ribs for dinner, the whole crew. And one of the flight attendants asked him about this ring he was wearing that had this interesting symbol. It's the Ankh with a triangle around it. And she said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, that's a Rosicrucian ring." And I thought, because I'd seen some of their ads earlier. As a matter of fact, we lived in the Bay Area. We'd been past the museum, and I I'd always kind of been drawn to it, but at the same time, there were the Moonies and the Yuppies and the Hare Krishna and all these other things, and I did not want to get sucked into a cult, so I kind of backed away from all of that for a while. But as soon as we got back from dinner and I could get him alone, I started pumping him for information about the Rosicrucians, and then he had a Spokane layover shortly after that, and he brought his girlfriend, now his wife, and my wife met us, and we all went out to dinner, and we all talked about it, and we wound up joining. I've been a member ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read those articles too, and I've never talked to anybody that was a member. That's pretty cool.
It's a very interesting study. It's totally non-dogmatic, and it's very open-minded, very, there's no one guru or anything. It's a compilation of the wisdom of the ages, the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, the Greek philosophers, the Eastern traditions, etc. It's all put together, and the basic principles from all that work together. It's all there. It's quite a nice group, and it's totally benevolent. I've never had any problems at all. It's been quite an interesting path. There are many paths up the mountain. They all eventually reach the top. It's just the one that I happen to choose.
Right. Well, thank you. That was good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really intense. So anything else with Tashina? Like, what's going on with her now?
Oh, my goodness. She's been up at Standing Rock a lot last fall, and with the water protectors. And she actually said that there were 4 other off-planet people in the camps, not necessarily identifying themselves to the people, but there were representatives of 4 different star systems besides herself in the camps with the people during the water protector actions up there. And that interview, I don't know if that's the one you heard, that I replayed as a best of on December 31st.
Right.
Living in a fifth dimensional way is what the camps at Standing Rock actually were a very good model for living in a fifth dimensional way. There was no money. Everybody contributed what they could. Their needs were taken care of, and it just worked. It was just a higher dimensional society that they created up there very rapidly. And that interview was absolutely fascinating, so I really recommend people check that out.
Oh, it's interesting. These people were definitely off-planet people. David Jacobs has a theory about the hybridization process, and that there are actually schools and situations that these hybrids in training, mostly, I would say they're maybe 75% alien, 25% human, but they look like us, get involved in, and they learn how to do things from make coffee to tie a shoe, all the things that we do. And I'm just wondering, these guys that are from other worlds, do they engage in any of that stuff, or?
Well, you open.
I mean, are they familiar with?
We could go for an hour on that.
Yeah.
Actually, we are a mixing pot planet. We're a combination of probably one number I've heard is 22 different star races.
Wow.
Probably Pleiadian is the predominant one, Arcturian, Sirian, Andromedan, but we are a mixture. As a matter of fact, I was trying to get some proof, kind of staking my reputation on, is Tashina really who she says she is? And I'm asking, is there some way you can prove this? And it was kind of an insult for her, because in the fifth dimensional level and telepathic, it's basically impossible to lie.
Yeah.
And so, but finally, so many people were asking that she went and got a DNA test. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 16% Apache, a couple percent Mescalera, and just a little bit of Tibetan. And the rest was totally unknown on this planet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, people might ask, where did she get the Apache DNA? And my answer would be, you're asking the wrong question.
Yep. Where did the Apaches get their DNA?
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. So, looks like we got just a few minutes till the break here. Let me just close out with, for this segment, we talked about the ETs having a sense of humor. My daughter used to ridicule me mercilessly. Of course, she was kind of shy, and Dad was a major embarrassment. You know, he goes out and chases UFOs. And it was getting pretty obnoxious, even with the in front of her friends and stuff in front of me. And so one night, my wife, who had seen her share of UFOs too, was picking her up at the rec center after gymnastics. It's 9:00 at night in the winter, and it's totally dark. And on the way over, my wife's just kind of thinking, I wish Jennifer'd see something so she'd quit harassing Dad. I probably shouldn't have used her name there, but anyway, she picks her up. They head back down the hill, and this bright orange flaming meteor-looking thing, but not quite, comes streaking down pretty close, makes a 90-degree turn, and right back up out of the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. My daughter goes, Mom, was that a meteor? And my wife says, not if it made a turn and went back uphill, Jennifer. Welcome to the club.
That's right.
I desperately asked how she would like that crow prepared. You know, maybe a little hollandaise sauce to kind of mask the taste or whatever. But I just bit my lip, and she stopped harassing me. So they took care of the problem. I'm sure they laughed all the way home. And the other, I guess we've already talked about, was when Tashina on the Skype call started laughing and said that my telepathy was working a lot better than my typing.
Oh my God.
So,
they do have a sense of humor.
They do. We've seen that over and over again, and they're people just like us, and we can get into that after the break.
Sure. Well, yeah, let's take our break now. We have about a couple minutes during the break. And we've got some really exciting things to talk about when we come back. Becoming invisible and vibration and frequency. It all sounds really exciting.
Pretty cool stuff.
So you're listening to Starborn Connection Radio on KGRA.com, radio.com. And we'll see you when we come back.
Okay.
Hey, this is Jimmy from Zeepa. I want to talk to you about something that really bothers me, snoring abuse. It's a real thing. You hear me? Abuse. And it's abuse that's been going untouched for far too long. Guess what? I'm going to touch it. I'm going to touch it like crazy. Wake it up and make it a known thing here. Snoring abuse is not a victimless crime. You go ahead and you snore, you're hurting others because you're taking away from their very important thing called sleep. People need their sleep so that they can function, you hear me? There's millions of people that are snoring night after night, and they're not doing anything about that. And if you're the one who's snoring, you better go to Zeepa.com and get this fixed immediately. That's ZYPPAH.com. You need to stop snoring abuse now. What about your children? They're not getting any sleep because you're snoring? Unacceptable. Order now. Go to Zeepa.com. That's ZYPPAH.com. That's Happy Z spelled back.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to a civilian job. These extraordinary men and women bring more than just teamwork and inspiration to the workplace. They bring proven world-class job skills. And to ensure proper placement, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right job fit. Talented, skilled, and eager to get back to work, you have the opportunity to hire a seasoned veteran. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
These
statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
HealthForLiberty.com is your source for Protovite, a powerful nutritional supplement that's a true breakthrough for your health. Poor digestion makes it nearly impossible to absorb the nutrition your body needs. Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology and the highest quality ingredients to nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra White. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking. I'm 66, living life and loving it.
Go to healthforliberty.com right now. That's healthforliberty.com.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to Starborn Connection Radio on KGRAradio.com. I'm Julia Yesner-Weiss. I'm here with Michael Austin Melton, Bill Skywatcher, our producer, and Don Daniels. And Bill, you had a question about pilots.
Yes.
For Don.
Yeah, Don, you've been a pilot, and I know you recently retired. But in your time as a pilot, have you spoken with other pilots about possible sightings that they may have encountered? And what is the percentage, you think, if you ever took a survey, of pilots that do have sightings, and the reporting process and how it may be diminished due to circumstances that they have to encounter when they're having these sightings?
Well, we did actually take a survey. After we did the disclosure project, and after I started having my sightings back in '99, I started talking to people, and I found if you just ask them, have you ever seen a UFO, they really kind of clam up. But if I would be a little bit vulnerable, and first of all, I learned to ask some careful leading questions to get an idea of where they kind of stood on the subject before I opened up with my experiences. But when I would then find somebody who was open and start to share some of my experiences, the floodgates would open up. And I would guess probably 30% of the pilots I talked to had some kind of a sighting. And so I was working with Dr. Richard Haynes, who was with NASA at the time. And I said, why don't we do a survey, a pilot survey? Because he was very interested in pilots and UFOs, and he collected reports from pilots, but he'd never done a survey. So I helped design the survey and the questions we were going to ask and stuff, and I tried to get permission to do it at my airline, and that didn't work. But a friend at another airline managed to get it approved by their management, and they gave this survey to the pilots. Now, normally if you get back 5 or 10% of a survey, it's a pretty good response. They got back like 50 or 60%. It was amazing.
Nice.
And out of that, it was probably 30%, 30 or 40% had some kind of a sighting, and a surprisingly large number, 5 or 10%, had a close sighting where they could, make out detail and structure. So it's really a pretty high percentage. The travesty is the psyops, disinformation campaigns, the ridicule, and trashing pilots' careers and stuff to try and get people to stay quiet about it has been quite effective over the years as far as keeping it quiet. But it tears people up psychologically. It's like these people that have been holding their stories inside for 20 or 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
And as a matter of fact, one of our witnesses said that he was in one of the first atomic bomb groups, and when they got the nukes, virtually everybody in the bomber wing was having close pacing encounters. And one day he had one where a cigar-shaped craft pulled up alongside and just kind of paced him, and he'd pull up, it'd pull up with him, he'd go down, he'd turn a little left, a little right, and it just stayed right with him. And then it's swapped over to the other side to like his 10 o'clock position and followed him on that side for a while. And he didn't really feel threatened. He just, it's interesting, this guy's just matching my movements. Yeah, but virtually everybody in the squadron had had some kind of an encounter like that, but nobody would talk about it. Well, the first ones that did report it, and they were under regulations, they were supposed to report it, they'd get this like 80-page survey to fill out, and the first page or two was what happened, and the rest of it was a psychological profile on them and their entire family and the whole bit. And then their careers would go flatline. They'd get transferred to ADAC, Alaska, or something like that. Pretty quick, it became apparent that the proper thing to do was just not talk about it, or else you're going to get trashed. That's part of the way they kept it quiet, and I think that's a travesty for the psychological damage it's done to all those people.
Yeah.
And so I started pushing the envelope, and especially after the National Press Club presentation, May 9th, 2001, which you can see on disclosureproject.org. I was there. You'll see the back of my head a couple times in the video, but we got shut down in the media. I mean, we got a little coverage the first hour. The second hour, very little coverage. A lot better, actually, overseas than in the U.S., and then after that, maybe a little bit on the local station. They had the spooky music and the fog and the little green alien in the corner. Some people in town think UFOs are real, and this kind of ridicule thing. And the next day, we were actually getting traction. They figured about, I think it was over 1 billion people worldwide had seen the story in some form or another, mostly in foreign countries. And we were starting to get traction when... I don't know how many of you remember what happened on May 10th, but you'll remember when I tell you. The FBI just happened to discover 5,000 documents that that they forgot to give to Timothy McVeigh's lawyers during the discovery phase of the Oklahoma City bombing trial, and it was about a week before the scheduled execution. So all of a sudden, the whole news cycle was taken over by the execution. Do we have to have a retrial, the whole bit?
Yeah.
They were saving that story to push us right off the radar scope. Wow. So that's one of the ways they work. But so we decided to take the show on the road because we could get some traction locally. It's when it goes out to the choke points at the AP, UPI, and the major networks. That's where the former intelligence agency operatives that are now high-level editors put the choke on the stories. So I was asked to be major domo for the opening of the Disclosure Project Roadshow, and I got the chemistry auditorium up at UC Boulder, and didn't even realize at the time that that's where Project Blue Book was put to rest, where they said, there's nothing to this. Well, something like 40 years later, we went back and said, yes, there is. We overstuffed the auditorium. We had probably 800 people in a 600-seat, 500-seat auditorium, and they were standing in the aisles and shoulder to shoulder, and I was hoping the fire marshal didn't come in. We showed the Disclosure Project 2-hour witness video, which is also available on disclosureproject.org. And we had a classic man in black in the back beating on the projection room door saying, "Let me in, you can't show that." Fortunately, the projection room was locked, and there was a college student in there running the equipment for us. And she didn't let him in, and our people just kind of escorted him out, sent him on his way. Well, a week or two later, I got a call from my chief pilot saying that I'd been removed from my next trip with pay, which is polite for grounded, and that I had to see the company doctor before I could fly again. Now, mind you, I have this wallet card that says Official Starfleet Identification. It's actually Star Trek The Next Generation, Columbia Video and Record Club. They wanted me to join the club and buy all the VHS tapes of The Next Generation. But the card looks so good in your billfold, if you put it in the first pocket, all you see is Official Starfleet Identification. And you just have to carry this card, And I was showing it to one of my flight attendants who was a real Trekkie, and I kind of flippantly said that I was dual qualified. Well, apparently my co-pilot either had never heard of Star Trek, had no sense of humor, or maybe he was former military intelligence or something, but somehow it got back around through the corporate headquarters, not the local domicile, that I believed I was qualified to fly spacecraft, and I had a wallet card to prove it. And so basically I got a psych. Now, I went in and talked to the doctor and showed him the wallet card, and he says, "Well, it says Star Trek right on it." And I said, "Yeah, why didn't they just ask me my side of the story before it got so out of control?" And he asked me a few questions like, what would I do if I saw a UFO when I was flying? And I said, well, they're better pilots than us. They know we're there. If I've got time, I'll flash a landing light at them, and if they flash back, I know they see me. They're not going to hit me. Minimum maneuvering, if any. He says, okay, I just want to make sure you weren't going to split S the jet and throw people all around or break something. And no. And so he's starting to sign the paperwork saying I'm okay. He says, I don't see any reason to send you to a full-fledged psychiatrist or anything. And about midway through his signature, he pauses and he says, by the way, what's this about this blue spotlight? And I said, oh, boy, here we go. I said, well, sir, that event actually happened, and here's letters from several of the people who witnessed it. One was a professor of Earth, Space, and Oceans at the University of New Hampshire, and another one was a scientist with the state of California and stuff. And I showed him the letters, and he looks at them. He says, well, hard to argue with that. Finishes signing me off and sends me upstairs. So when I got up to the chief pilot's office, he says, well, I was hoping it'd be something like this. And I said, Joe, why didn't you just ask me my, my side of the story? And I realized that at that moment, I the upper hand for just a moment. And I don't normally take advantage of that, but in this case, I said, I've got a question. Is it okay to talk about this subject with other pilots while I'm on duty? And he said, well, try and be a little more careful of your audience, but yes, it's okay. I go, cool. I have official airline management permission to talk about UFOs. Now, God. I can't say I believe in this or I saw this and I work for XYZ airline. They don't want me directly associating it with the airline, but as long as I say a major international airline or something like that, then I'm okay. So, so that's why I ask you not to list the name of the airline. But in the process, I did make it a lot safer for pilots. I was not able to get permission to do the NASA survey, the one with our airline, but we did get that done with another airline. So I did break some ground there and make it safer for pilots to talk about it. And then I was asking more and more of my co-pilots, as I learned to do better leading questions and figure out their position before I really opened up. I talked to a lot of them. As a matter of fact, on my retirement flight back in February, one of the flight managers came out to the airport on a Saturday to meet me, and congratulate me on my career, 27 years. We had a little party up in the flight ops with my wife and everything. And as we're walking back, he says, Don, I flew with you years ago, before he was a flight manager, and we talked about all this stuff. And he says, it really opened me up. It really shifted my paradigm, and it's really interesting. And I gave him a copy of my book for the flight office up there. I've also given a copy of the book to the chief pilot at another domicile. So, I'm pushing the envelope still, but I've been making it safer for pilots to talk about the subject.
Wow, you're a groundbreaker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's really great.
Mark Kimmel wrote a book called Icebreakers, and it's kind of the same thing.
Wow. So, tell us more. We got some really interesting stuff. What's this about becoming invisible?
Well, there's been rumors that some Rosicrucian adepts have been able to become invisible. And I always wondered about that, and I didn't get to that part in the lessons yet. But I didn't know exactly how that happened. But I was at you remember the movie What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, they did a conference up in Boulder that I went to, and I met a lot of the people that were in it. And the ROMPTA group was part of the people that organized that whole thing, put it together. And they were showing me some pictures where they were doing meditation out in the paddock, out in the pasture. Had probably 100 people out in the field, and they were all meditating and trying to remote view, trying to lift their consciousness up out of their body and look down on the field from above. And then they were taking pictures. Well, not only was the sky, 20 feet above the people, just absolutely full of orbs, which I believe are actually a higher dimensional consciousness, that it's a conscious energy that comes through on the digital cameras because they read a little wider spectrum than our eyeballs. But also some of the people in the pictures were somewhat transparent. You could see the fence right through their body. You could see through them and see what was behind them. And I thought, whoa, that's kind of wild. Well, in one of our Rosicrucian meetings, we did an experiment, and we'd get two people at a time go down into the sanctum of the temple and sit opposite each other, and the object was to project unconditional love to the other person. And so I'm in about the third group, and the guy who volunteered to do it with me was Dean. Dean was like 80-some years old, kind of crotchety, and he loved to push my buttons. He'd just tweak me just for the fun of it. And so I'm thinking, oh, man, this would have been a lot easier with somebody else. And then I thought, wait a minute. Good one, Cosmic. You gave me an extra challenge here. I'm supposed to believe that, we're all connected, we're all one, and, our fundamental oneness connection with Source, etc. So I settled into the meditation. I do just basically a square breathing exercise, inhale and pause and exhale and pause, and go into that silence that occurs in that pause between the breaths and try and expand that out with each breath to where eventually you can stay in that silence between the breaths through the entire breath cycle. And I started thinking about, we are awake and aware and conscious, sparked by the same seed of consciousness from the same creator, and in that way we are intimately connected and we're one. And I'm starting to project unconditional love to Dean, and realizing that, the people who tweak you sometimes are your teachers. They're pointing out something about yourself that you maybe you're kind of suppressing, but you really need to work on in yourself. And so it's kind of showing you where you need to focus a little bit. So I'm kind of thanking him for being the teacher and everything, and I'm getting into a really good state of bliss. And I didn't notice much of anything from my perspective. This went on for like 10 minutes or so, and then they brought us gently back out. And some of the people who were watching said, Don, the most amazing thing happened during that session. So really what? They said, well, first this purple haze formed all around you, and then an arm of that went out and encircled Dean. And then she said, then you became transparent.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I think what's happened is that I shifted my consciousness to a higher vibratory level, that unconditional love and oneness, which is the hallmark of the fifth dimension. And dimension is maybe not the most descriptive term. Maybe density would be better. It's a higher vibrational frequency. Everything is lighter, more energetic, less material. And it's kind of like a fan. When the fan is stopped, you can see the fan blades. You turn it on, and for a little while you can see the fan blades, but as it goes faster and faster, it gets beyond your flicker frequency rate to where you cannot see the fan blades anymore. Now, they're there. You're not going to stick your finger in there just to test the theory. I think that's basically what happened. Was I amped my consciousness frequency up to the next dimension, to where in this dimension I became transparent. And that's been noted with a lot of the UFO encounters, that they can be invisible. They sometimes show up on pictures, and I sent you guys some pictures today. I don't know whether you have a way to share them with the audience or not. But did you see that picture with the three gigantic orbs?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And then if some people think they see a humanoid figure on the left side and maybe a smaller one on the right side, a friend of mine who's really connected said, he checked in with the Andromeda Council Biosphere ship or whatever, and he said the big one is Ozzy. It was actually a more complicated name, but it's virtually unpronounceable, so he goes by Ozzy for us. And he's an Arcturian higher fifth dimensional that apparently has been working with me. But we're starting to realize that on our field outings, it's not just looking for a physical craft in the sky, but we are having encounters with energetic form beings, higher dimensional beings, that do sometimes allow themselves to show up on photographs. So we're starting to take more photographs during our field outings when we go out and meditate under the stars, try and connect. And, we put out the intention that we only wish to work with those who are here for the highest good of humanity and the planet. And when you're in that space and projecting unconditional love, nothing less can enter your space. I've never met one I didn't like. I've never had a negative encounter. I know some people who have, so I know that those lesser ethical ones do exist, but I've never had a less than benevolent encounter.
Oh. And what is, I have the name here, Ramtha?
Ramtha? That's a group that they do a lot of meditation training and spiritual training and stuff. They're up in, I think, the Seattle area. They're up in Washington State. And they were actually a number of the people in the What the Bleep movie were part of the Ramtha group.
Okay, and how does the vibration and frequency, how does that affect contact?
Well, like I said, you have to raise your consciousness, your frequency to a level where you can meet the higher dimensional extraterrestrials halfway. And so when you do that exercise and go into, first of all, just becoming aware of awareness itself, not what you hear, but how it is that you're able to hear the sounds or perceive whatever, how it is that you are conscious, and realize that every being in the universe is awake and aware and conscious in the same way, sparked by the same creator. And from that, you have a fundamental point of oneness of where you can start to initiate a dialogue or a relationship. You have that fundamental thing in common. And then from that, once you've established your oneness, your commonness, then you can start to celebrate the differences for what you can learn from them. It's just like when I travel the world with the airline. I've been to 5 of the, well, I've now actually 6 of the 7 continents. And everywhere I go, people are people. They're all much more alike than they are different. They want the same basic things: food, shelter, clothing, a better life for their kids, etc. And it's primarily just the governments that muck things up, but the people everywhere are just wonderful people. And I found that you can extend that to contact with extraterrestrials. It's kind of like a good training. I actually took a group from one of our weeks down in Crestone out to they called it the Shumei Center. It's a Japanese kind of a religious group, and they do a healing technique, and they have a nice center down there near Crestone in the Baca. But they cycle kids through there whose English is pretty marginal. They're just learning, and they give the tour off of this script. But if you ask a question and get them off script, they're kind of hopeless. But I took a group of people down there for the experience of trying to communicate with people who don't communicate very well in English. And the idea is, to find other ways to communicate, whether it's hand gestures or drawings or telepathic or whatever, body language. It's good experience. It's a good way to practice for extraterrestrial contact.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, also there you have here the law of attraction. Can you tell us about that?
Well, basically, we manifest. We're great manifestors. We just don't realize it. Whatever conscious thoughts we're putting out, the universe tries to fill. The problem is the universe doesn't understand the qualifiers. So if we have a war on terror, the universe doesn't understand on. They just hear, okay, they're putting out that they want war and they want terror, so I don't understand why, but we'll give it to them. If you're living in fear, the universe says, well, I don't understand why, but they're asking for more things to be fearful of. We got to be very careful. I put the examples there: MAD, DARE, anti-war protest. They don't work very well because you're fighting against something. And the puppet masters of this world would love to have us fighting against what they're trying to do, because by fighting against it, you give it more energy. What we need to do is focus on creating the world we want. We need a campaign for peace. We need a campaign for responsible driving. We need to shift the focus. A great example of that was Mother Teresa. She was asked to march in an anti-war parade, and they asked her, and she said no, and they were totally dumbfounded. Well, why would you not wish to participate in such a worthy cause? And her response was, when you give a march for peace, I'll lead it.
A lot has to do with linguistics.
It's a very subtle shift, but it's very, very important.
Yeah, because last week we had Susie Byler on, and she's one of my mentors, even though she's younger than me. But she was talking about the protest as well, like the Women's March and all that just happened a few months ago. And she was saying if the women were marching with love in their hearts, that would produce the energy for true change. But if you're marching because you really hate something, you're actually adding to that energy and not creating the change. And I agree.
Precisely. And actually in those marches, the net energy was actually positive. It was a shift, and people are starting to realize that they need to work for what they want to create. And,
absolutely. I felt the Women's March was a positive thing. I agree with how you go into something. You know, you have to go with the full. It's hard when you don't have a fifth dimensional consciousness and you just have a three-dimensional, and it's us and them. But if you go in with that unity consciousness idea,
right,
and that you want love and you want the government to work for everybody, and you want to be heard, but it's, you know, it's a whole different way of looking at things. And also, like when I do my meditation, I'm so careful about my thinking. Like this thing with Syria.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to focus on peace. I don't want to focus on the war or the revenge part because to me, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but I see something different than what the news is showing. I see a force behind everything, manipulating it. And so I'm just like we did a meditation where we just felt, we felt safe. We created a safe space for ourselves. And then we sent the energy to Syria so the people would feel safe. And then we sent love. And for the highest good of the whole region and the whole world to manifest. And so we didn't really want to focus on the actual war, the actual chemicals, or, you know, getting into that detail. We just wanted the result of love. But we had to resolve ourselves first, get the fear out of ourselves, so we could feel safe before we sent that energy out. You know, that was Susie Byler's meditation. It was really good.
Well, you guys got it. You got the concept. Now, that leads into actually the last point on my outline there. We'll skip over a couple. The Law of One. I've been reading a very interesting book called Living the Law of One, 101, The Choice, by Carla Ruckert.
I read all 5 books on the ways to ascend. Yeah.
Well, the direct channeling transcripts are kind of all over the place and hard to follow. But what she
explains it. Yeah.
Her book explains it, and I was thinking, man, she'd be a beautiful radio show guest. And then I found out she passed away several years ago.
Oh.
But and so book 102 and 103 will probably never come out. But they talk about the ascension process, the collective, the raw collective, RA, that she was channeling, said that there's basically 2 ways to ascend, and that this cycle happens every, I think it was 76,000 years, that we reach a point where there's a good opportunity to jump to the next level in our consciousness, in our ascension process. And there's 2 ways to ascend. One is to be at least 51% in service to others, and the other, surprisingly, was to be at least 95% in service to self. And that really kind of threw me for a little bit, but basically what those people do is they provide the contrast that mobilizes us, gets us off the fence, and makes us get active to improve the world. And, I know some people, I'm not going to name Orange Cheeto names, but that are probably on that path. The problem with that path is it's very difficult. If you're only 94% in service to self, then you get stuck for another 76,000-year cycle. And even if you do manage to ascend on that path, it kind of peters out after a couple of more levels, and you also wind up living the next life on another world where you're surrounded by all these other people who are, totally in service to themselves, and it's the battle of raging egos. Can you imagine if you had, a whole planet full of those people? It would not be a very pleasant place to be. So that's the very tough route to go. The easy way, and the way they recommend, is to live your life at least 51% in service to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think also when you're in service to self, there has to be a balance, because you have to take care of yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love others. And we're conditioned not to, that's conceited, but it's a different type of love. It's like respecting and honoring yourself. And if you're tired, you need to sleep. You can't be running around servicing others. If you're just like the airline, the stewardess tells you that if the pressure goes off, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you give it to a child, or else you're going to pass out. So, and
then you don't save either of you. Yep.
Yeah, so there's like a balance. But I also heard, this was really intense and it's pretty controversial, but I get it from a fifth dimensional level, that people like Hitler and Stalin, before they came here to Earth, knew that they were going to be the catalyst for all these negative things, all these murders, because it had to happen in order for the sequence of events to happen for humans to ascend. So, I mean, that's kind of like, who would want to pick that type of path?
I know. So, it's hard to wrap your mind around that.
It's hard to wrap your mind around it, and they still have to get, like when they pass, they still have to go through conditioning. From what I hear from, a lot of different sources that are connected to that Hitler is completely solitary, and it might take another few thousand years, but he's like, they're retraining him, because the soul doesn't die and we don't go to hell. We constantly learn and grow. And a lot of us have had past lives where we were nasty, and we have to go through that cycle. But when we ascend, when we all ascend as a group, I believe we're not going to go through that reincarnation cycle anymore. Is that true? Do you feel that?
That's kind of my understanding. I also... I'm a member of a near-death experience and spiritual growth group, and I have not had an NDE, but a number of my friends have, and they say, some of them say, yes, you do review every event in your life, and it's and how it affected everyone around you. If you were mean to somebody, you see it from their side, you feel it, you have to come to terms with that before you can move on. And so these people who are mass murderers, war criminals, etc., their big life review in the sky is not going to be very pleasant. I prefer to work out my karma here as much as possible, and then you don't have to do that at the big life review if you've already solved it here. And I prefer to take the high road on that.
Well, I think the big life review, it's not about judgment. It's just about, it's like you're in a school, you're learning.
Well, you actually judge yourself, and you're probably harder on yourself than they would be. But yes, it is a learning. You review, okay, what did I accomplish? Did I accomplish my soul mission for this lifetime, or did I not remember what it was? Do I need to go back and repeat this lesson? What other lessons do I want to accomplish in the next lifetime? But my understanding is we're coming up to this 76,000-year cycle, which the Raw group calls the harvest. We call it ascension. They call it the harvest.
Right.
And,
right.
And that this is kind of the end of this cycle. We got to wrap up all our karma now, so that when we transition to the next level, that we're done with this reincarnation into the third density.
Well, I see, I'm just feeling, I don't know if you're feeling it, but I'm seeing that there's so many people becoming awake and aware now that it's actually changing timelines.
Oh, yeah.
you know, because they predicted a lot of different things that didn't happen but happened differently. You know, when you make choices, you either have one outcome or another. Like, I think 9/11 was supposed to turn into a major world war, and it didn't. You know, there is a war going on in Iraq all those years, but it wasn't the whole world. You know, it wasn't like total, complete devastation of everybody. So I think I think it was because the consciousness was starting to be raised.
I think they're trying again, but we're not going to let it happen.
No, they're doing it with Syria. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And let's see. I had a thought back there, and then you kind of shifted the subject a little, so I lost it. But that's okay.
About Syria? You had a thought about Syria?
Well, it was before that. The timelines.
Yeah.
I've got a friend, G.W. Harden, who has a number of books about his conversations with angels, and basically what he was told was that originally we were on timeline 1. He called it the timeline wars. The Greys had their agenda to help their particular race, and they didn't care what it did to us. Basically, they were a parallel humanity who destroyed their environment and had to mutate to survive, and in the process, they lost their ability to procreate, and that was why the hybridization programs, they were coming here to virtually parallel family lines, bloodlines, and getting the genetic material to create the hybrids that could carry on their race. But that era ended. I think the other one was the Pleiadians, who were had some of their own agenda, but they were also working for what was better for us. And that era ended. He says, we are now creating our own timeline. Nobody knows what's going to happen because we're creating it as we go.
Wow.
Well, we're powerful.
We are powerful. We're powerful creator beings, and people just don't realize it. But think about it. Have you ever accomplished or acquired anything that you didn't visualize first? Maybe you wanted a new car. You thought about it. You looked at it. You looked at the color you wanted, etc. And then you worked for it, saved, and you went down and you bought it. You manifest that car. But virtually everything in your life, maybe it was a job or something, you visualized and put out to the universe the desire for it before it ever happened. What we're doing now as the frequency speeds up here, that manifestation is becoming much more powerful and much more rapid, and we got to be careful with our thoughts, because if we're
I was just thinking,
we create problems of our own making. You know, people who are afraid of being abducted are going to create an abduction experience. I want peaceful contact, and that's what I've manifest.
It's like the people that are really into the conspiracy theories, they're going to get what they're putting out.
Yep.
You know, the people that are doing the hoarding, you know, their basement has like all the food in it and everything for like 3 years. That's what they're creating for themselves.
Oh, I flew with a pilot who lived on a hilltop community. It was a gated community, and he had 100 guns, and he had 1,000 rounds of ammo for each gun, and all his neighbors were similarly equipped. And when Obama took away their food stamps and those people rioted, they were going to set up their perimeter, and nobody was getting into their neighborhood. And I just said, have a nice life.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's, you know, I think the initial point for people to understand that's part of the ascension process or going into fifth dimensional consciousness is to become awake and aware of who you are and how powerful you are, and that you're a piece of God, that you're here to experience, to learn, to grow, and that you can manifest. You know, I've been doing a lot of meditation where I'm thinking about, you know, the type of life I want and the type of heaven on earth I want. You know, clean air for everybody, clean food, a beautiful earth, totally clean and pure, beautiful homes, people working together in communities, and the education. I don't even see kids in school sitting behind a desk. I see the kids in nature, and the teachers just teaching them I mean, it's like a prison. School has always been like a prison. It's like you're out there in nature and you're learning how to read and write just outside, and they're relating it to actual experience, teaching you how to live with nature. And you know, so I have my own kind of heaven on earth. Everybody has a different heaven on earth, what they consider. But you can just sit for 5 minutes every morning and just imagine how it would feel to live in that type of atmosphere, you know, and that would raise your vibration.
Well, Tashina actually teaches that way out in the open a lot, and she ran a school up at Standing Rock for the kids that were up there, which was quite amazing. But I see we're getting down to only about 20 minutes here, so I did want to cover one other thing real quick.
Sure.
When, you know, the first couple of years after I met Tashina, she was way under the radar and, you know, secret. And I'm very open with my truth, and it's very difficult for me to keep a secret like that. I had a secret level security clearance when I worked for the Air Traffic Control Center, but I probably wouldn't be able to get one now because I'm a total free radical. But after a couple of years, she was told that she was supposed to go out and start effecting disclosure from the grassroots up, because it was not happening from the top down the way it was supposed to be. The government and the media and stuff were not disclosing to the people that, you know, we're not alone in the universe, etc. And so she wanted to start speaking publicly, and I helped her find some, you know, compatible groups and helped, you know, I do my presentation and kind of lead into it, and then she would do hers, and drop the little bombshell that you know, she was not born on this planet and stuff, and I'd be watching the audience reaction, and nobody screamed, nobody left. Everybody was just leaning forward in their chairs, wanting more and more and more. And she is just so sweet. I mean, everybody just loves her. You could tell that probably from listening to that interview about her up at Standing Rock. She's just as sweet as can be.
Quiet soul. She reminds me of an American Indian person. You know, they talk very quiet.
Well, you know, the Arcturians gave the American Indians some of their genetic heritage.
Absolutely, yeah.
But during this conference, the first one that I was at, one of the very first ones where she came out openly, was down in Pagosa Springs. And during one of the breaks, we were sitting there talking, and she referred to herself as human. And I said, but Natasha, I thought you weren't born on this planet. And she says, I wasn't, but I'm humanoid, aren't I? 2 arms, 2 legs, head on top, 2 eyes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well then how do you refer to us? And she said, Terrans, residents of Terra. At that point, you know, up until then, it was always us and them. You know, even though I had this, I was working very hard on the unity consciousness and the oneness and all that, I still considered, you know, there was us and there were the extraterrestrials, and there was kind of a subconscious dividing line in between. All of a sudden, that barrier just broke down. It was like, okay, she's human. She just happens to come from another planet, just like I've got friends who came from Asia and Africa and Europe and Latin America. We're all people. We just happen to come from different countries, or in her case, different planets. Mm-hmm. But we're all people. At that moment, it's like, whoa, paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any questions out there?
Actually, I do have one, Don. I do.
Of course.
Now, with your background in 2001 with the disclosure, the citizens' hearing, what do you think is the state of disclosure now? I mean, we hear a lot in the past supposedly that with Hillary and Podesta, there's some people that are speaking about Tom DeLonge now. I'm wondering, do you think, obviously, in my opinion, I don't think it ever come from government. Do you think that WikiLeaks is possible, like a whistleblower, or, you know, we're living in the era of leaks now. So how do you envision disclosure occurring?
Well, there's already a lot of stuff on WikiLeaks. Some of the Snowden documents alluded to some of the secret space programs and such. We're seeing a lot of soft disclosure. Ancient aliens. Actually, it started probably with Star Trek. And that was, 40 years ago?
Right.
And actually, my friend Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala from Hawaii, has got some excellent books. Two of them, Insiders Reveal the Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances, and a new one on the U.S. Navy secret space programs. Astounding, mind-bending. I mean, I thought I had a pretty good concept of what was going on in the secret projects, but no, he takes it to a whole another order of magnitude. And it turns out that one of the admirals that William Tompkins was working with, his son was feeding information to the producers of Star Trek, and a lot of what you see in Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, etc., is actually pretty darn close to what's really going on out there, and it was kind of a soft disclosure way of getting us prepared. But Star Trek was great because they had the multiracial crew, they other peoples from around the galaxy, and they showed how, you know, people from different worlds can interact and work together. And so it was kind of breaking the ice there to get people thinking about it. And I think after 40 years of Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff, I think the vast majority of people are ready. You know, some of the hardcore religious fundamentalists might have a problem with it, and surprisingly, some of the scientists might have a problem with it because they're so wrapped up in this whole theory of the universe that they've been believing and teaching for all these years, and to then go back and admit that, gosh, I was wrong about that. That's tough on them.
Yeah,
so we got to be gentle with the scientists.
You know what? You know what though, Don? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we had a few months ago they spoke about the possibility of a distant star having a Dyson sphere. We also hear about the possible life that could exist in underneath the ice sheet in Europa. Water on Mars, exoplanets being discovered pretty much on a daily basis. So that is kind of soft disclosure, and it would also help. It would also help cover up anything that they were covering up, because now they could say, well, we've been telling you that we're finding evidence, possible evidence of life existing out there with the existence of these exoplanets. So, you know, they eventually made it here, and that would be their way out to not discuss all the Pandora's box of the past where they may have had knowledge of the existence, you know, to crashed retrieval or recovery or whatever it is.
Well, for them to admit full disclosure at this point would be to admit they've been lying to us for decades.
Right.
And so that's a Pandora's box for them. You know, they went into that mode to start with, and once you tell a lie, then you got to tell another lie to cover up that lie, etc. My philosophy is always tell the truth. You only have one thing to remember. But
that's right. Hey, that's good.
Well, they can always claim it had to do with national security. That's how they came. Just like Hillary Clinton said on her interviews, you know, on late night.
Yeah, I never had much faith that she was actually going to disclose anything. No. You know, why doesn't she do it now? Does she have to be president in order to do it?
Really? And you know, she has nothing to lose now.
No, but they do these little things like, we may have some evidence of bacterial life on Mars, you know. Oh, come on, guys, just get on with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of my favorite movies of all time is the original 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Right.
Michael Rennie. Yeah. That was actually put out by the White Hats at the State Department, trying to get people thinking about how they should react to the news that we had visitors from outer space. That was actually put out as a way to condition the people. And then the other side, the cabal that had the technology and wanted to keep it for themselves, put out, you know, War of the Worlds and Independence Day. That was an MJ-12 infomercial. And we've had the good movies, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Flight of the Navigator.
Right.
And, you know, it goes back and forth. It's a battle between the two sides. But I recommend people go back and watch The Day the Earth Stood Still again. It was a psychological profile on how the different groups of people, the government, the scientists, the military, the civilians, how they would react. And it was actually a very, very good movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid. But when you watch movies now, like you watched them when you were a kid, and you're in a certain consciousness, so you just get the on the surface stuff, but when you watch it now, knowing what we know now, you see through so much. It's like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, for
one other point I want to get real quick before we go, you were talking about languaging and or terminology, and people are conditioned to call them aliens. Tashina really hates that term. She says, for one, it's derogatory, and two, in their vernacular, alien means the degree of separation from source. We're the ones where the veil came down. We forget we've got a direct connection. We've got to pay the church to be our connection or whatever. And so we're the aliens in this relationship. I asked her, well, how do you prefer to be referred to? And she doesn't even like extraterrestrial because she's lived here most of her life. It's just like if somebody moved here from Asia. I've got friends who moved here as kids from Asia. They've lived here most of their life. They consider themselves Americans. It's more like that. She prefers the term star cousin or star sister, star brother, because we are not only on a soul level related, but we are physically, genetically related. We are descendants of ancestors from those different star systems. We're the mixing pot planet. We're also a schoolhouse planet. We come here to this third dimension where we face the extreme challenges, and it forces rapid soul growth. We choose this as the tough course rather than coasting along in the higher dimensions where there's no real challenges and everything's bliss and love and nothing to force you to grow. So people come to planets like this to challenge themselves, force themselves to grow and ascend their soul spiritual level more rapidly.
So all this information, are you getting this information from your space brother or sister contacts? This is something you wouldn't have come up with if you didn't have the contact? What do you think?
Well, I've seen it from a number of sources, but she's also confirmed it. And she, as a matter of fact, she told me that I did not need to be here for my soul development. And it's becoming more clear from, people who are psychic and also my rememberings that I used to be an instructor at, they told me at the Midway Station and also probably at the Crystal Pyramids in Melchizedek. But I was teaching people who were going to go out on these away missions, either to incarnate on a planet or to drop in and try and blend in. I was the professor that taught them what they needed to know to go on these missions. And now that we're at this critical time, the ascension time, the time of the harvest, if you will, the professor wanted to be here himself, and I'm gradually but progressively waking up to that mission. And part of my objective is to wake people up, get them comfortable with the concept of meeting our neighbors, and raising their consciousness to accept them as equals, as fellow people, and in that way raise the consciousness of the planet to where we can kick it over critical mass and move to the next level.
Woo.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I could see that in you.
I think when we're finally able to grasp the fact that, we are citizens of a much larger consortium here, I think people will be happy, glad, and unafraid.
Mm-hmm. One of my poems talks about becoming a citizen of the universe.
Right.
So tell Don, just before we go, tell everybody again your website, your book, and your radio show.
Okay, my website is www.becomingacosmiccitizen.com, and there's links there to the radio show and to my book, which is Evolution Through Contact, Becoming a Cosmic Citizen. The book's available on Amazon and CreateSpace, and you can link to that through my website. Ask your library for it. Make them order it. But it's available. I'm now that I'm retired and supposed to have all this free time, I should get it into Kindle format. And then I'm getting the push to write the second book. As a matter of fact, when I finished this first book, and I gave Tashina full editorial review on the chapters about her to make sure everything was totally accurate and met her approval. And I finished the book, and she actually has a lending library of about 10 copies that she loans out. But she said, "We've been waiting for you to finish this book." And I go, "Oh." That's why I kept getting this foot in the middle of my back to finish that book, get it done. Okay. And I think
well, you were lucky to get 2 interviews with her on your show. I wanted her on our show, but I think she's undercover again, right?
I haven't talked to her in a couple of months, so I don't know for sure. She is a pretty private person. I mean, there was one time when she accidentally put her phone number on a business card, and people reverse engineered that, and they were camping out on her front lawn and
oh boy,
pulling up shrubs for souvenirs. And it was like when the astronauts were going to the moon and the families were being totally harassed. It got out of control. She had to move, and so she's got to be somewhat private, but yet she's as you heard on the interview with me, she's just a person. She's a really neat person and very highly conscious, but she's people just like us.
So what's your estimate, or do you know how many people like her are on our planet now?
She said back in 2012 that there were 1 million off-planet people living among us.
Wow.
In 2013, when things really heated up, and they were in the process of cleaning up the grays, and she says the abduction era is over, the grays have been removed. The Arcturians came in because the Pleiadians were having a little bit of a tough time managing it, so the Arcturians, kind of one of the more oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, they kind of like the Marine Corps, they came in and cleaned that up, and they're in the process of cleaning up the last of the reptilians. So she said there were 2 million among us at that time out of 7 billion. That's 1 out of every 3,500 people. If your town has 3,500 people in it, there was probably 1 in your town at that time. She says now that most of that work is done, they've leveled the playing field for us. It's up to us to clean up our part of the mess. But they've leveled the playing field for us, so we have a fair chance. She says there's only like 30 or 40,000 now on planet. But there's many more on ships around the planet that are watching and giving us a little nudge now and then, feeding ideas to the scientists, etc.
Wow.
Giving us little nudges along the way. Yeah.
Because it really is up to us. They can't do it for us. It's our decision as sovereign beings.
It'd create a planetary-wide case of codependency.
Yeah.
Think about the ancient, Egyptian and Greek and Inca gods and stuff, and in those cases, I think some of them were actually extraterrestrials who were just more technologically advanced, but that did not work out well for either side during those times. So I think they've learned their lesson that, don't make us codependent. Let us clean up our own mess. Now, if we are working to solve our problems and we ask for help, then they can assist. But we have to make the initial effort, and we have to ask.
Right, because there's non-interference. And that's just like Star Trek.
The Prime Directive, where do you think
that's right?
Yeah. And the
Prime
Galactic
Directive.
Council and all that. Well, I can't believe how fast 2 hours went, of course.
It always goes fast.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to have you on again, especially after the second book comes out.
Okay.
And I want to thank you so much, Don. It takes a lot for an airline pilot to come out with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you a lot of credit and kudos. And just to let you guys know, next week we're off we're going to have a rerun for the Easter vacation.
Right, we're going to be off. I'm not going to be around. I'm sure Julia would appreciate the time off, and we will be live the following week. I'm trying to get some special people, and I'm not going to say anything, but hopefully we can get some good guys in here that I'm working on, and it'll be good.
So everybody, I want you all to have a wonderful evening. Good night, Michael, Bill, and Don, and our listeners on YouTube and around the world. Thank you so much. This is Julia Weiss from KGRAradio.com, the Starburn Connection. See you in 2 weeks.
God bless everyone.
God bless.
are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRARadio.com. In the spring of 1969, the Mutual UFO Network started the long-standing tradition of professional research and investigations into reports of unknown aerial phenomena. Over the last 46 years, MUFON has made great strides in gathering evidence and data using the most up-to-date methods and equipment in the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. In keeping with MUFON's missions and goals to educate the public on the UFO phenomenon, the MUFON UFO radio show was developed to deliver data and real UFO investigations to the public directly from the MUFON case archives. On this program, you will hear from the witnesses who file the reports and those who investigate them, as well as experts in the field. This is the MUFON UFO Traffic Report with your host, Grace Hobbs.
We're broadcasting live from the heart of the American Midwest right here in the River Valley of Fort Smith, Arkansas. Welcome everyone around the world. This is the MUFON UFO Radio Show and Traffic Report. And thank you all so much for joining us here on KGRARadio.com, the planet. Now, also want to thank Roger Marsh. Roger Marsh, thank you so much for your understanding in, allowing me to have the last 2 weeks off, along with apologizing to all of the listeners, the MUFON listeners. You guys are absolutely awesome. I can't thank you guys enough for your understanding. People were writing, they were concerned that are you okay? Is there anything we can do? Just, you name it. Absolutely humbled by each and every one of you great folks who took the time to write or comment on our socials and Facebook and Twitter. It just humbles me, honestly humbles me, to know that you guys care so much, and that just because we were scheduled to go live and at the last minute had to go into a refeed, you guys were awake and aware enough to realize that and know something may be wrong. Race may have choked on a cigar, fell out of his chair and broke his neck, anything, and you wrote about it. To Roger, my boss, I truly am thankful for you, and I truly am thankful for each and every one of you, whether you wrote or not, because together, you sitting here listening to the other end of my voice, whether it be in the archive, in the free archives offered by MUFON and KGRA, and you're listening to it after the live broadcast, or you're listening to it right now during the live broadcast, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your concern, thank you for your support, and together we're going to continue to grow this show. I am absolutely overwhelmed with joy at how folks have responded to this broadcast and the new format that Roger and I have created to evolve, to MUFON Evolve, this radio broadcast that was built on the back of our DOI, our wonderful Director of Investigations, Steve Hudgens, who started this and developed this program for the first couple of years, and we sort of just took it and built upon it and expanded it a little bit, and we put more staff together to help run the show. Just a phenomenal return in listenership and appreciation for this program. Thank you all, folks, for also writing to radio@MUFON.com. That is the email for you to reach us here at the program. If you have any suggestions, show ideas, people that you would like for us to feature or interview, or information you would like for us to elaborate on from MUFON or bring to the airwaves, please take the time and write to us at radio@MUFON.com. We always appreciate hearing from you folks. We get wonderful emails. Every once in a while, we'll get someone who's a little disgruntled about a few things. And we like to hear from you, too, because that's how we learn and are able to help develop this show better, along with all of the positive suggestions and comments that we get. Now, I should have some mailbag for us tonight, but to be honest with you, I have been so overrun with responsibilities for the entire station, for family and personal stuff, that it was any wonder that I got back into this studio in time to launch this show on time. Tonight, folks, we've got a really good show lined up for you. Another person that I have to apologize to and am terribly thankful for, and that is Mark D'Antonio. You know, I've wanted to bring Mark back and talk to him about the scientific value of satellite technology. You know, on some of these television shows, you know, What on Earth series, specifically and also NASA Unexplained Files, you know, he's on both of those programs. He's been on them for, you know, years and years. And these folks, they submit these satellite videos and photos to him for him to analyze. He's not just doing it for MUFON. He does this stuff, television series that he works on and is presented on, as well as others. So, you know, he knows what he's doing. He's been the chief video and photo analyst of the Mutual UFO Network for many, many, many years. He has been a member of the Mutual UFO Network, I think, if my memory serves me right, since 1970 or 1971. I'm going to go ahead and date the fella. I think I did that in the last program, so I don't feel so jetted now. But he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's a privilege to have him on this program. And I had him scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and we bumped that show to last week, and at the last minute had to bump that show. And so he's been scheduled for 3 weeks in a row, and tonight I promise you all that Mark is staged. Sound checks have been done, and he's ready to go. We have so much to talk about, so much to get to. It's going to be a really fascinating conversation. It always is. You know, I say this about few people, but this one is truly, how can I say this? It's just truly an honor to talk when you get the opportunity to have his ear and to get to talk to him and have him talk to you. It really is. He is so busy. He works for so many illustrious companies, big companies, and FX models his business, that when you get the time and the opportunity to talk with Mark D'Antonio, it's truly special, and it's an honor. And like I said, I don't say that about a whole lot of people, but I probably should, because I'm very lucky to be where I am. Sometimes I forget that I own the station, and, you know, that people sort of kind of look up to me because of that. And I've been in conversations with people in the past couple of weeks that have said, you know, Race, you need to understand that these people are kind of nervous about approaching you because, you know, you own KGRA, this big radio station, blah, blah, blah. Folks, I'm just a down-to-earth guy that puts his pants on one leg at a time, or his shorts on for that matter, one leg at a time, just like the rest of you. I'm probably the most down-to-earth, humbled individual you'll ever come across. And, you know, for those that have been cursed to have the time and conversation to get to know me better, they'll probably tell you the same thing. And I hope that it's good. Maybe not, but I'm just a down-to-earth good old guy. So if you ever see me or you want to reach out to me and talk to me, just do it. I'm just a nice, easygoing fella. And like, you know, I was talking with Mark earlier. He's like, Race, you know, I remember when I first was going to talk, I was nervous wreck. You know, and I think about Mark being a nervous wreck. I never realized it. Never really. But sometimes I wonder why people act the way they do when we're at conferences and things like that. I wonder if it's just like they think that, well, he has a great voice and that's the guy I listen to, but I didn't know he was, you know, wider than all outside. I didn't know he weighed over 300 pounds. You know, I imagine him totally different. Sometimes I think that's what people may think. But the truth is, you know, I love meeting people. That's the best part of this job. The greatest part of being in my chair is getting to meet folks like yourself. Like-minded interest, search for the truth, have a passion for this, or even just a passing interest. Getting to talk to you about UFOs and the search for the truth about UFOs and evidence about UFOs and research about UFOs, I just love it. And then that always leads to us over a dinner or a glass of of wine, or maybe some scotch or some Crown and Coke. And, you know, that goes off farther into one another's personal likes and dislikes and things like that. So I have built so many lasting relationships and wonderful friendships that I will cherish for the rest of my life because of the opportunity to be, and the blessing, really the Lord's blessing, to be right here where I am. And for those of you that I have met and become friends with and gotten to know and network with, I truly appreciate each and every one of you. You know, sometimes when you go through hard times in life, those folks that kind of come out of the woodwork and remember you and think about you and are there to support you, they truly enhance your existence, even from afar. And I have so many of those people that I'm blessed to be friends and extended family with that I tell you, I come to all of you tonight from the KGRA studios here in the beautiful River Valley, where we have a warm sunshine starting to set out west, and the birds singing outside the window, and my 150-pound hound dog laying at my feet. I'm just a humbled, happy gentleman tonight, and thankful that all of you are here. Now, just got a message from my sister on Skype. She's laughing at me about my comment about choking on a cigar. You better not laugh, because that actually has happened before. I love you, sweetheart. To all of you in the Florida area, you know, coming up here really soon, just around the corner, as a matter of fact, in August. August 25th to the 28th, the Mutual UFO Network presents its 47th annual MUFON Symposium. The theme this year is UFOs from our oceans to outer space. And it's going to be held at Hilton Lake Buena Vista Hotel in Orlando, Florida. And I would love for all of you to go take a look at the website, www.mufonsymposium.com. They've got the list of speakers there, what, tells you about the MUFON Symposium, about the hotel, the convention center and everything. There's going to be more field investigation training. And I'm telling you, folks, now listen, if you've attended MUFON Symposiums before, they have done a good job at presenting field investigation training courses and seminars at the event, okay? But I'm telling you, my first year was last year to get to see a MUFON Symposium live and in person, and I was thoroughly impressed. Poking my heads in doors and using the old press pass to get in places that normal folks couldn't get. And I'm telling you, I was just absolutely impressed from the start to finish. 5-star accommodations and warm, welcoming smiles and faces everywhere you look. And but the field investigation training this year, I have been privy to some of the preparations of this training courses that are going to be presented this year in Orlando, and I am just thoroughly impressed. Ken St. John is the new captain of the field investigation training ship. And much more. The MUFON University, all of the training that's going to take place in the future is sort of the brainchild of this brilliant man. And he, along with several other MUFON volunteers, trainers, volunteers, field investigators, department heads, and state officers and so forth have gotten together and put together amazing field investigation training. So absolutely, take the time to go to MUFONsymposium.com and have a look at all of the features and everything that's going to be going on in August, brought to you by the Mutual UFO Network. Folks, now that I have just rambled on here for about 20 minutes, I want to go ahead and jump over the studio, across the studio, to my brother in arms, Roger Marsh, for another wonderful UFO traffic report. Roger's all set and ready to go, and as soon as we are on the backside of this amazing traffic report, we're going to have Mark D'Antonio on the air live for all of you. Roger, the mic is yours, my friend.
Good evening and welcome to the UFO Traffic Report. First up, a New York witness at Adams reported watching 2 limousine-sized black triangle UFOs that silently floated at the treetop level, according to testimony in case 76388. The reporting witness was a passenger in a vehicle driven by her boyfriend southbound along Route 11 between Watertown and Adams. Quote, At about 11:45-ish, we saw lights on the road up ahead, and the picture just didn't make sense to us, the witness stated. At first, it looked to me like maybe a fire truck up ahead or something, but the closer we got, the less sense the image we were seeing made. The two continued in the direction of the object, coming up on it fast, within seconds. Quote, "They were in fact closer to us than I thought, maybe a quarter mile from where we first noticed the lights. We had to slow down fast or we would have driven right underneath and past them. My boyfriend came to a stop, so these things were drifting across the road right in front of us. We were driving south on Route 11, so they were drifting across the road in a southwest direction and right over the road in front of us. They turned around and drifted back the direction they had been coming from, northeast. The two got a good look at the objects." Quote, "Because they turned around in front of us, we got to see just about every angle of these things except the top. So it was not an optical illusion, and we could tell how close they were to each other and to us. We saw them up close, clearly, and in 3D. It was dark, but there were street lights and our headlights, and they had blinking lights, red and white only, the whole time we saw them." The two watched closely. Quote, "I had turned off the heat and radio as we came upon them, and I immediately stuck my head right out the window for the best angle, and two things struck me right away. First, the silence. They made no noise that I could detect above the noise of our vehicle, which is not loud. Second, their proximity to each other. They were so close together, I would think they would be bumping into each other. When they turned around, I thought we were going to witness a crash. They were only a few feet from each other, and they never split up when they were in our sights, but they moved independently, not like they were attached. The objects were large." Quote, "The craft were about the size of limousines, lazily floating over the road, not far above the telephone poles. They were both triangular, but they were not the same. One was a wider triangle, like you might picture a military drone or something, but the other one was a skinny, pointy triangle. Both had, I believe, red blinking lights in the front corner of the bottom and white blinking lights on the side corners on the bottom. Besides being triangular in shape and the lights, they were completely featureless, at least from the bottom and sides. Just perfect triangles. No other angles or pattern at all, just black. The objects stopped and turned around." Quote, "After they turned around and we just gawked for what seemed like minutes, but must have been seconds, a spotlight shone coming from the side of, I think, the skinny one, right off the tip of the wing or side corner of the triangle. It shone in our direction, but I think it shone over us, not right on us, and then they were drifting over the trees back in the direction they seemed to have come from." The witness told her boyfriend to hurry up and chase them and not to lose them. Quote, "I kept my eyes on them and could see the lights through the trees and directed my boyfriend where to go, but I lost them through the trees. I could see them, and then they were just nowhere. My boyfriend took a route that should have cut them off if they had continued their speed and direction, and we drove around with my head out the moonroof, searching and finding hilltops to search the horizons, but nothing. They were gone. The two then drove around looking for a police car, but could not find one." New York State Section Director John Lombardo and Chief Investigator Nicholas Vulgaris are investigating. Next up, a Virginia witness at Charlottesville reported watching and photographing a triangle-shaped UFO that briefly hovered and moved away at a fairly low altitude, according to testimony in case 76512. The witness and her husband were driving home along Barracks Road when her husband pointed out an object in the sky, saying, "This is not a regular airplane." About 9 p.m., May 21, 2016, quote, "I looked out the window and stopped in the road when I saw it was hovering almost slightly above us," the witness stated. "Distance cannot be determined, maybe 2,500 feet above." The witness described the object, quote, "It had several bright white lights, some flashing, others remained constant. Intuitively, we sensed that it sensed us and perhaps saw us, stop our car in the middle of the road, to which it then hovered for at least 10 seconds. Then it continued on a low-altitude pass. The witness wondered what they were looking at. Quote, "My first instinct was that it is an advanced government aircraft, and I felt thrilled at witnessing the technology being conveyed to our site. We turned around and watched it, and I took a quick photo with my camera phone that unfortunately did not do it justice, but shows two bright white lights as it continued on its path away from us. In the picture, there are buildings, and above one building, you can see the two white lights." The witness included one image with the report, which was filed May 22, 2016. Virginia Star Team Field Investigator Norm Gagnon is investigating. Charlottesville is the county seat of Albemarle County, population 48,210. Next up, an Illinois witness at Spring Grove reported watching a large illuminated triangle UFO at close proximity about 9:30 p.m. May 22, 2016. This according to testimony in case 76537. The witness first noticed the hovering object, while driving southbound along Wilmot Road. Quote, "Object was at an estimated height of 200 feet above the ground," the witness stated. "As I drove closer, I was able to get almost underneath it, 75 to 80 degrees from the horizon." The witness continued driving in order to find a location to turn around, losing visual observation behind trees. Quote, "Turning around at the nearest road and driving back to the location took less than 1 minute. In that time, the object traveled northwest a good distance and was seen moving slowly and slightly angled or banking. The object became obscured behind trees on the side of the road, and visual was lost. The entire encounter took less than 2 minutes." The witness provided 3 illustrations of how the object looked and a map showing the object's movement. Illinois MUFON State Section Director Gregory Sisko was investigating. Spring Grove is a village in McHenry County, Illinois, population 5778. And finally, tonight, a Mississippi witness at Corinth reported watching a white cigar-shaped UFO that appeared to be spinning and hovering at altitudes under 500 feet, according to testimony in case 76343. The witness was driving home from work westbound along Highway 72 at 11 a.m. May 13, 2016, when the incident occurred. Quote, "As I approached CR 735 to make a right turn, I noticed a hyper-white object in the sky," the witness stated. "I pulled my car over and got out to observe it. The sky was almost perfectly clear with a few light sparse clouds. The object stood out." The witness described the object, quote, "I stood perfectly still and observed a cylindrical object with rounded corners, like a tic-tac shape, spinning slowly. It widened as the sides faced me and dimmed as the edges faced me. I moved so that the object was sitting directly above a power pole. This let me see that it was perfectly still while spinning on its horizontal axis. It remained locked on its position for over 3 minutes and then slowly descended while moving north. It remained spinning without ever slowing or speeding up. It continued to descend until it dipped below the tree line, and I lost sight of it." The witness took 3 images, but these were not included with the original report, which was filed May 13, 2016. Quote, "None show the object as it was hard to see the screen to aim the shot while the sun was shining on it. The object seemed to spin at about 50 to 60 RPM, which is why the pictures may not have captured it, as it was turning and not very visible as the edges faced me." Mississippi MUFON Field Investigator Karen King is investigating. Corinth is a city in and the county seat of Alcorn County, Mississippi, population 14,573. You can read the complete news coverage on these stories and much more at our website, MUFON.com. Use the newsroom link at the top of our homepage and choose UFO News. This is Roger Marsh. Please stop back next week for more news from the UFO Traffic Report.
There you go, folks. Another great traffic report. Thank you, Roger, the wonderful executive producer of this program. Folks, don't go anywhere. We have got Mark D'Antonio on deck next. You're listening to MUFON UFO Radio.
Around the world for decades have come high strangeness reports of mysterious aerial lights, beams, animal mutilations, human abductions, secret space and military programs focused on an alien presence. One reporter of these Earth mysteries is Emmy Award-winning TV producer, writer, and editor Linda Moulton Howe. She reports and edits the science, environment, and real X-Files news website, earthfiles.com.
We are moving from the paradigm that we are alone in the universe to a new one in which we are not alone, and something out there is interacting with us, our animals and plant life, forcing glimpses of other realities upon us.
Linda has produced 4 large books about these phenomena with hundreds of color images and illustrations that reviewers such as New York Times best-selling author Jim Marrs describes as an amazing accumulation of evidence. All her books, An Alien Harvest, the 2-volume Glimpses of Other Realities, and Mysterious Lights and Crop Circles, along with documentaries, are available in the shop at earthfiles.com.
What would your life be like if you woke up each morning with new vitality, feeling better than you have in years, and you noticed a difference in your sleeping patterns, blood sugar levels, and had a sense of well-being overall? There's something that is changing thousands of people's lives, and you could be one of them. It's called Heart and Body Extract. Sharon Harris, co-creator of Heart and Body Extract, talks about the positive effects of this product.
What happens with the formula Heart and Body Extract is it's giving the body the necessary vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, and phytonutrients so the body will heal itself. And yes, the body does have the ability to balance blood pressure, balance cholesterol, clean and unclog the arteries. It can also work on balancing the circulation for diabetics. So the body is an amazing thing. It simply needs some help, so it has the tools to heal itself.
To order your 2-month supply, call now toll-free 866-295-5305. Order online at hbextract.com.
Would you like freedom from insurance? Liberty HealthShare has united a community that shares their healthcare costs, and Liberty HealthShare members are exempt from IRS penalties. You choose your doctor and hospital. Your medical provider submits your bill to Liberty HealthShare. Why wait? You do have choices. Use promo code TALK and save $50 when you enroll. Go to libertyhealthshare.com/option. That's libertyhealthshare.com/option.
In March of 2012, the Global Radio Alliance joined the digital radio revolution on a mission to give the UFO Paranormal Talk radio listeners a digital option worthy of their time. To seek answers to the greatest mysteries in the history of the world, the KGRA has assembled some of the best authors, researchers, investigators, and journalists on the planet. The world's best UFO historian, Richard Dolan. Emmy award-winning investigative journalist, Linda Moulton Howe, and RAF Woodbridge experiencer, John Burroughs, on Phenomenon Radio. Paranormal investigator, Chase Kletzky. On Fate Magazine Radio, author and researcher from The Fringe, Micah Hanks. With the Gralien Report, weeknight show anchor Jimmy Church, and Fade to Black. Finding answers to these mysteries is the very fuel that keeps us going. And after 4 years, the KGRA marches on stronger than ever. We are your source for UFO Paranormal Talk Radio, KGRAradio.com.
Live alternative talk radio in over 125 countries across Mother Earth. KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to the MUFON presentation of the MUFON UFO radio show. Folks, it's brought to you by the Mutual UFO Network every week, and all of our archives can be found at kgraradio.com/shows, and they are free to you, presented by the Mutual UFO Network and KGRA Radio to you. Remember, You can always go get those. You can download those to your mobile devices, your laptops, your personal computers, and you can listen to them on demand whenever you feel the need you want to do so, at your own comfort, at your own discretion, whenever you feel is a good time to go to MUFON Radio. And for me, that's always a good time, or at least I try to make it that way. Folks, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Now, when you search the Mutual UFO Network or MUFON, as I always say, you're going to find a whole lot of them. There is MUFON Connecticut, there's MUFON Arkansas, there's MUFON Missouri, there's MUFON California, Nevada, there's MUFON Arizona, MUFON Phoenix. Add them all. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on in the UFO movement in real time. I'm absolutely being honest with you about it. I also want to remind everybody that's in the Northwest Arkansas region. All right, this is a local promotion, and I've called on several of our MUFON branches, on all of our MUFON branches, as a matter of fact. If you are a section director or a state director and you have a meeting coming up, an open meeting to the public coming up, submit the information about your upcoming meetings, open meetings to the public, to radio@mufon.com. Folks, I'll be glad to get these mentions on the radio for you guys, when you meet, where you meet, what time you meet, and who you may have a featured speaker coming, or maybe presenting a video, or, just whatever. Send that information over to us here at the MUFON Radio Show. We have a lot of folks within the MUFON ranks that listen to us. Spread the word. Tell your other members, tell your directors, your section directors, your chief investigators. Let them know, as Race relights his cigar here, that we're here for all of you. This is your radio show. This is your radio show. We want to get your information out. I got information from the West Central Section Director yesterday, or day before yesterday, about an upcoming meeting reminder. The 18th, Saturday the 18th, from 10:30 a.m. to noon at the Fort Smith Public Library main branch on Rogers Avenue in the Carnegie Room. You folks in the Northwest Arkansas area, in the West Central section of Arkansas, and in fact, eastern Oklahoma, be aware and be known that this meeting is taking place, and it takes place every quarter. The West Central section, I know, meets quarterly, and their quarterly meeting for June is coming up this Saturday on the 18th at 10:30 a.m. to noon at the main branch on Rogers Avenue of the Fort Smith Public Libraries. So if you need any more information, contact us here at the station. You can contact us on our toll-free phone at 855-472-5483, or you can give us an email at radio@mufon.com, and I'll give you more information on that upcoming meeting here in the West Central section of Fort Smith, Arkansas, here in the River Valley. Royce Fitzgerald is the section director of the West Central section, and he does a really good job of putting on these wonderful meetings every quarter. And if I had his information right here in front of you, I would gladly give that out. Royce, I'm sorry about that. But again, you can reach us here at the studio or via email. Now, Mark D'Antonio, I promised you for 3 weeks that he was coming, and I'm making that promise come true. We've had him on once before. Great reviews for the show. If you missed the show, you might have been freeze-dried or under a rock for some period of time and don't know or are not aware of who Mark D'Antonio is. But he has a degree, let me tell you a little bit, in astronomy, okay? He is the Mutual UFO Network's chief photo and video analyst and has been for some time. He's also the CEO of his company, FX Models. It's a model making and special effects company specializing in digital and physical models and organic special effects in the film industry. You know, he's done extensive work in the film and television arena, appearing regularly on a number of networks. His efforts in creating UFO Talk 2, a remote UFO detection system, which we talked about a little bit on the last program with him, with Douglas Trumbull. it truly promises to bring ufology into the 21st century. I could go on and on with the long list of accolades and experience this man has. His bio is of some length, but we're just going to jump straight into it and welcome him back. Mark D'Antonio, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to have you back here on the MUFON UFO radio show.
Race Hobbs, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You know, it almost sounds like you were talking about somebody, other than me. You know what I mean? I'm not worthy. You know?
No, that's not true. You're absolutely. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, Mark. You're humble. You're a good old boy, humble, just like old Ray's.
Yeah. It's like what people say about me and what I actually do. I always think are two different things. You know, but look, it's like this. We just do the best darn job we can, because if we don't do it, then, people are going to be under potential misconceptions. If we know something might be a non-UFO sighting, it is our obligation to at least bring up the other possibilities. And, I myself, I totally believe that they're here. I believe that a lot is going on here on planet Earth at the hands of extraterrestrials, but that's just me. I can't prove it, but that's what the UFOTOG project is all about, as we talked about.
And, we're going to get into that again here in the latter part of the program. You and I had this conversation. And after we got off the phone, I actually realized that you and I are likened in so many ways when it comes to the UFO movement. Now, I'm not college-educated, graduated, brilliant mind like yourself, but I get scrutinized for the programs that I present on this station. I get scrutinized in good ways, and I get scrutinized in bad ways. And I know the same thing goes with video and photo analyzation, because a lot of these folks that see these things are convinced they're extraterrestrial craft. And I have often said, and even made a video for YouTube where I debunked a video that was created by this online YouTube bunch that's what they do. They make a living creating these fake UFO videos. Most of them have a military theme to them because they seem to collect the most hits. I literally saw a UFO that was titled UFO over Taliban destroys, Taliban stronghold or base or something like this. And I saw that one. I had actually seen the video footage, the real video footage, some years before of a JDAM attack on a bomb-making facility.
Right, and you just see this big explosion, and then, of course, these jokesters get a hold of it and put a UFO in the view and say, look, a UFO destroyed, whatever. It's a bunch of crap. Right, I don't even like giving them any kind of, press or airtime, so it's just like, it's unbelievably bad, and the videos aren't even that good. I mean, they're just sort of average.
Yeah. We had a good videographer at the time that was working with us from Norway. And Sean Black, he was just he's no longer with us, but he was amazing. And he was like, Race, look, here's the UFO they used. And there was a video called a UFO over Virginia. It was a triangular shaped UFO that was hovering over this little ridge. And he split screened it, compared the two. He's like, look at this. I was like, man, we've got to make a video of this thing and debunk this whole thing. And we did. Just to show people that, because honestly, listen, this Taliban UFO thing, where, that big explosion we were talking about and all, this thing had 700 and something thousand hits in just a day or two.
Yeah, it gets YouTube. Legs. Yeah.
They people click and share without doing any research or any looking into it. A lot of folks, send these things to folks like you and even me that I'm not a photo or a video analyst, but they send it to me and they, Race, what do you think about this? And I'm always glad to tell them what I think. I don't always get the greatest response from them, on what I think. But in the video that we debunked this video, because I went back and found the original video they used and they mirrored it, they flipped it, so that you wouldn't be familiar with it. But I was still familiar with it. I mean, they were very clever in how they did it. And so in this video, Mark, I tell people, listen, when you see a photograph or a video of a purported extraterrestrial craft, I'm not even going to call it a UFO because everything we can identify in the air that's unidentified is by definition a UFO.
That's right. It's a UFO. Oh, no, wait, it's not. It's Southwest.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. In your mind, call it a terrestrial something, and then work your way forward from there. This has got to be a misidentification. It's got to be a satellite or a plane or a helicopter or a drone, a flare, anything that's terrestrial that you can imagine this might be. You work your way back and you whittle that away. No, this can't be a flare because it moved, 6 miles in about 3 seconds. Now, we know a flare really can't do that unless it was probably in a tornado or something, or a hurricane or something. But do the examination. Do your own. Most folks don't give themselves enough credit for the knowledge that they possess and the common sense that they possess to be able to honestly just kind of look at this from a terrestrial eye and a terrestrial mind and a skeptic mind, and then work your way forward from there, because every time you click and share something that is absolutely CGI or fake or not, not an honest extraterrestrial craft or event or photograph or whatever it is, you're wasting everyone else's time.
And not only that, you're also putting a black internet mark on your reputation. So you have to be careful, too, because you could then come back and say, oh, no, I rue the day when I said that was an extraterrestrial craft, when obviously it's something else, right? So, and you're right, by the way, the order in which you progress to figure out whether something is extraordinary is you have to go through the list of the ordinary first, and you have to exclude them one by one. If it was a balloon, it would travel this way, just like you said, but it's not a balloon in my view because it didn't do this, this, and this. Okay, it could be a Chinese lantern because it has the glow. However, it was moving all kinds of different directions in a split second, which Chinese lanterns cannot do. Okay, so we exclude that, and then you work down the list. So it is a process of elimination. You start with all the knowns that that humans have dreamed up. All right, and then you exclude them one by one. Now, that would be a very laborious process if we used that exact process for every single video. But we can shortcut, because in some cases, when we see, say, an object in the sky, and we see that it's moving across the stars or whatever, and it's moving at a certain speed, then we can immediately exclude all things balloony, okay, and things that are, Chinese lantern-y, okay, and the reason is because it's something that is more recognizable immediately as, say, a satellite or the International Space Station. The other day, we had a beautiful night out here, and the space station came over. And when one of my kids saw it, he was like, wow, that's the space station. Amazing. And then right after it passed, in the same spot in the sky, a satellite known as an iridium satellite, it's known for having these very reflective panels that occasionally catch the sun. And you see the glint from the satellite very, very brightly. Yeah. It's well known, and they're cataloged. You know when there's going to be an iridium flare. That's what they're called. And there was an iridium flare scheduled for right after the space station passed. And I caught both. I caught the satellite, the space station going by on film, just a digital photo. And then on a digital photo with the camera in the same place, I caught this beautiful iridium flare. And it was just amazing. And both of those things are mistaken for UFOs at one time or another by somebody, somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. The flash, for me, gives it away every time for satellites. If you see a little star-like thing moving across the sky in a straight line, sort of fades in, gets really, really, really bright. Every once in a while you get a little flicker from it, and then it just dims away and slows down, dims away. we were talking about that. Give us, we've got about 3 minutes before we go into break. And I want you to give us a little bit of a description of what a satellite will look like to all of us when one traverses the sky.
Well, it's very simple.
And can be seen by us, and actually can be seen. Because there's hundreds of them, if not thousands of them up there. But we only see a few that are just in the right position with the sun shining on them in just the right way that we can see.
That's right. That's right. There's thousands of satellites, like over 2,500 or so active satellites with about 10,000 plus, pieces of space junk in orbit going along with it. Now, let's take a look at what that means. What that means is that every single night you've got thousands of objects going over your head, pretty much every night. Many of them you will not be able to see. Some you will be able to see, and if you get a program for your phone in either Android or Apple called Go Sat Watch, for instance, or any other of a dozen, or if you use a computer and go to heavensabove.com, then you would be able to check what's going to be passing over your head and go out a minute before it shows up, look at it, pass, and say, oh, wow, there it goes. Now, what it looks like is not a meteor. A meteor is very fast, obviously, and I think most people listening know this. But the satellite will kind of look like a star initially. It'll look kind of like a faint star moving very slowly across the sky. But there's a difference. The stars are very far away, and they scintillate. They actually flicker, right? So you get that shimmering of the starlight. A satellite won't do that. It's going to look like a solid, steady light. All right? It will not normally flicker unless it's tumbling and it's an old rocket body or something, in which case you might get a tumbling effect. But that's what they look like. They look like a steady, moving light across the sky, and sometimes they're very bright, like the International Space Station. Sometimes they strain the limits of your own vision and everything in between.
Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing the first one. My wife and I were sky watching from our patio. And man, she can spot them. She's blind as a bat trying to hold something in her hand and read it. But when we're out there on that patio, she sees them. I mean, she's always the first. We were given by a wonderful researcher that I met years and years ago at a MUFON meeting, local MUFON meeting here when we first began to attend MUFON meetings and later joined MUFON. He gave me some of these green laser pointers. And man, these things are powerful, man. These pin pointers, I mean, these things shoot. They're perfect because we started out doing you see that bright star with the two little stars beside it? Look to the right and just down from that, and there it is. See it? We were doing all of that kind of crap. No, I don't. Right. Where were you talking? I'm looking down my wife's arm. She's pointing right at it. And I'm laying my head on her arm with my one eye shut, like I'm aiming through a gun or something. Yeah. So we get these laser pointers, man, and you can get it right on it, right on it. And she points at one of these things, and right about that time, the damn thing flashed. It's just like a camera flash on it. And I was like, get that laser off of it. It's, you're going to call that damn thing down here, too. And I thought that it was but it just went a straight line. Just a straight line, straight across the sky. It was exciting at the time when I thought this might be something because it was way high. You could tell it was way high, and it was moving pretty good speed, good rate of speed. But later, after I learned what a satellite looks like, I was so humbled by it because now, if I don't see that thing stop and make a right-hand turn real quick and boom off in this direction or something, if it doesn't make some maneuvers that are not in a straight line or an arc, it doesn't excite me at all.
That's unfortunate because there are a lot of really cool satellites up there that you can look for, especially these iridium flashers. But you said something about it. If a the satellite goes over your head, it's moving at the fastest speed you're going to see it move. And it doesn't actually change its speed in orbit. It's just that's when it's going over your head, it's closest to you. And so it'll look like it's going the fastest, like a car speeding by you at an intersection. As it goes by you, it's going as fast for you relative to your motion. It's moving fast as you'll see it go by.
Absolutely.
But as it speeds down the road and you look at it leaving you behind, you're not going to be able to tell how fast it was going. And in fact, it may look like it's slowing down. You don't really know. You can't gauge the speed. In the same way, satellites in the sky, when they get down range and they start heading out far past you, they're already hundreds and hundreds of miles away from you at that point. As they go down range, they appear to slow down. Right. Because they're starting to make that turn as they're in a circular orbit around the Earth. So they just keep on going, and they look like they're slowing down because you're watching them as they recede into the distance.
Right.
And so, it's all an illusion. They're not actually slowing down at all.
Right. The car thing, that analogy is perfect. When you're looking at a car coming straight at you, it looks like it's going slow. It's taking a while to get to you, but when that thing goes by you, it's going a lot faster. As it goes away from you, it slows down again. It's going faster, then it goes slower. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, yet the car never is changing its speed.
No, never, not one. And the same, that's perfect. All right, Mark, we're up against our very first break in tonight's interview already. I want to thank all the wonderful people in the MUFON live and interactive chat at kgraradio.com/chat room. We've got a nice crowd that is assembling there. And I want to say hello to one of our super fans, the most beautiful fan, Annie. She's listening to us up there in Delaware, and I want to say hello to her. She gave us a shout out that she's listening tonight to MUFON Radio, and looking forward to Fate Magazine Radio to follow. Did you know that there is another way to listen to all of the great UFO paranormal talk radio on KGRA while on the go? Well, the KGRA has partnered with TalkStream Live to bring you a call to listen feature from any phone. Simply dial 605-562-4206 on your cell phone. No smartphone, apps, or internet needed. No extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Add the number to your contacts and dial hands-free. Listen to the KGRA from any phone, anywhere, anytime. Just dial 605-562-4206. That's 605-562-4206. Making it even easier to get the talk radio you want from TalkStream Live and your KGRA digital broadcast station.
Your best source for live UFO paranormal talk radio. KGRAradio.com.
Folks, you're listening to the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON UFO Radio. I'm really all thumbs here tonight. I'm so sorry for commercials being low. I was almost, I don't know if I did talk into the commercial stop set as my bumper music ran out. But I'm getting together here, folks. Bear with O'Race. I've been off for 2 weeks, and so producing, engineering, directing, and hosting and driving this show all at once. I got to crack my knuckles here and get it all back together. Folks, if you're interested in volunteering for the Mutual UFO Network and possibly becoming an active member, we would love to have you. Visit MUFON.com for all the information. Absolutely wonderful website. It's user-friendly and easy to use. If you go there, you can click on Get Involved. And when you click on the Get Involved tab up there at the top on the main menu, they have information on joining, becoming a field investigator, donating, finding a chapter near you, as well as events that is presented by MUFON. So all the information is right there, MUFON.com/get involved. We'll take you to right there where you need to go. We would love to have you. We can always use more investigators and more folks with an active interest in this phenomenon. We absolutely could. Again, I wanted to say hi to Annie. Thank you for your wonderful message. It was absolutely a pleasure to see it, and it tickled me and it uplifted me, and I just want to say hi to you again, Annie, up there in Delaware. Thank you so much for your support. As I confirm a friendship request from Robert Hastings, one of our wonderful guests here on this program. I find it amazing that I didn't have him on Facebook already. So, thank you, Robert, for that friend request. I just confirmed it, and I look forward to networking with you on Facebook. Now, back to the program with the illustrious Mark D'Antonio, MUFON's chief photo and video analyst. We were talking about some of the things that you're going to see in the sky, especially satellites, talking about satellites, what you're going to see when you see a satellite. We, for those of us who have done this for an extended period of time, and that means longer than 10 years in my language, once you've done it that long, I think you've pretty much got sightings and sky watching and that sort of thing figured out when you have a UFO interest. At least that's about where it took me to get to to solidly define the things that I have seen. I have seen, Mark, and I know you have. There are things that we have seen that we cannot explain with a terrestrial reasoning and a terrestrial.
That's exactly right.
It's just they're there. These things are out there. These things that they make maneuvers that just don't gel with my understanding of physics. And I'm not a physicist, but I understand movement. I understand y'all. I understand how gravity works. I understand how like balloons and things work in gravity and operate and maneuvering and I know how the eye interprets these things. All of these things and there's a lot of things. We couldn't go over them in a 2-hour show, all the examples of
I don't think so.
No, of physical objects that are, manufactured objects, whether terrestrial or non-terrestrial for that matter, and how they've been seen to maneuver and how the physics works within them. Now, satellites are the biggie. At one point in time, my headache was these Chinese lanterns because they really came out of nowhere and then all of a sudden became, the orange orb thing was just all over the place. Now, that's not to say, I have seen reports submitted to MUFON by witnesses who say they saw an orange orb at close range and the thing was at least 150 foot in diameter. That close, literally that close, that low, that is not a Chinese lantern, and it could never be confused as one.
If they were reporting it correctly. In other words, the Eye Institute and Stanford University both did research studies showing that, and this is the kind of thing I have to get into, they did research studies showing that in the dark, where an object is an isolated object in the sky, it does not have enough information passed to your eyes and that your brain can interpret. There's no reference points that allow it to be deciphered in terms of how far away is it, how big is it. And that's why when you give 10 people, you tell 10 people, hey, I want to know how big that thing is. The first person might say it's the size of a football field. The other person might say, nah, it's only 3 feet across. How far away is it? A mile. And the other person would say 10 feet. It's hard. And those two studies showed that humans have absolutely no ability to do depth perception analysis just with their eyes. Your eyes are separated. There's two eyes. You have binocular vision. Then binocular vision is good out to a couple 100 feet. Beyond that, it's anyone's guess, and we know how to measure how far something is by looking at what? A reference point, something we already know. Well, based on the tiny size of those trees on that distant hill, I would say that object, which is illuminating those trees, is X amount of feet in size. That's valid because you're using a reference, a comparison metric, something you can compare it to that you know. But in a dark sky, you have no comparison.
Right.
It could be a small object up close or a very large object far away.
That's true.
And that is the source of endless struggle for those of us who have to take a witness report and try and correlate it to a video. I had one that came out of Pennsylvania where I'm convinced it was a Chinese lantern, all right? And the video was taken. You actually saw flaming bits of the lantern falling off of it, just like they do.
Right.
And the people watching it were and taping it on their iPhone, rather, on their phone, said, this thing is incredible. It's got to be 5 miles away, or it's got to be at 5,000 feet. I mean, but when you look at the video and you do the analysis, you realize there's just no way they can tell the distance. If we know the prevailing winds, and we have an idea, if we can get a good idea of what its actual size is in the sky, then we can calculate maybe a rough idea of how far away the Chinese lantern is. Now, based on where the flame fell, the flame thing that fell off of it, I don't think it was more than 600 feet away from them. All right, and he was saying it was 5,000 feet away and it went 5 miles, and that was the actual report basically. And it's like that's none of those metrics are right. None of those metrics are valuable in a scientific sense because we can't know that. We can't measure that.
Right.
Not without like a range finding set of equipment, and that's just not going to happen unless someone is really got set up to do that.
Right.
Now in the CubeSat arena, okay, when we look at the satellites that are up there, the group that is sending up the satellite is looking for clues as to what may or looking for indications that we're being visited. Now that's why they're calling it CubeSat for disclosure, right? I applaud them. I'm on their side 100%. We're doing a different project. We're doing UFOTOG 2, the successor to the original UFOTOG project that Douglas Trumbull had invented at great expense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in my arena, I look at the fact that we're a ground-based utility.
Right.
And the CubeSat folks are going to be an orbit-based utility. Now, it's going to be a lower orbit, and the satellite, my understanding is it's going to last about 3 months. And it may cost like up to $14,000 or $15,000, right, to launch it, and then that's before you, I think, figure out how much your satellite's going to actually cost itself. I don't know the details of that, but I do think that these are all necessary programs, and I think that we all should be working together on these things. We're going to fund ourselves. We're going to get funding for what we're doing. In fact, we're working on it now, and we've got some very, very good possibilities. And I know that the CubeSat folks did a Kickstarter. Contribute to them, folks. Make sure that they can get up in orbit because they're important. And this is the wave of where we are going to take ufology. They are the epitome of taking it into the 21st century along with us. We want to do the same types of things. We're looking for special radiations that an advanced race would be giving off with their ships if they were coming here. And this is by far, the CubeSat and our project are by far, I think, the ones that are going to lead the way, I should say. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because I don't really buy that. This is a team thing. The data we acquire belongs to humanity. It doesn't belong to me and Doug. Okay, and so humanity is the beneficiary of this, and we're hoping that we'll catch something that we'll see that what we call skid marks. That's a term that we coined. I know it's funny to any 10-year-old kid.
Shit, it's funny to me. Shit, I'm giggling still. I knew what the term was.
Yeah. We're looking for those skid marks.
But that's a good description. It's a good, it's a good word to use to identify exactly what you're looking for. Explain that a little bit, real quick.
Sure. If there was a ship that was using some method of propulsion that takes it out of our four dimensions, X, Y, Z, all moving through time, with time being a fourth dimension. If there was a ship using technology that goes interdimensionally, let's say, as it transitions from one set of dimensions to our dimension, there are theoretical radiations that they'll give off. Among them is potentially Hawking radiation. Another one would be gamma radiation. Gamma radiation, Hawking radiation, they may go hand in hand. Hawking radiation is notoriously hard to decipher. But gamma radiation is something that even your iPhone can pick up, because there is actually a gamma radiation application that you can download for your iPhone. And it uses the fact that the camera sensor has a sensitivity to that kind of radiation.
Right.
And you got to just block the sensor and not let the visual part get involved. And it actually takes a reading from the sensor directly. I think that's really cool. Who knows if it's terribly accurate? I mean, we don't have a way to calibrate it, right. Not without creating a tremendous carcinogenic, wave of gamma rays to see if it's accurate. Hey, it works. All that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think between the CubeSat project and our project and other projects that people are doing out there, I've seen some camera projects out there that just knock my socks off, that they're doing such a good job tracking objects in the sky. We're not focusing on tracking per se, but we are focusing on capturing the whole sky in a variety of wavelengths and looking for special radiation emissions in a variety of wavelengths, and then doing spectral analysis of any such emissions, that come in at a variety of wavelengths. And I think that it sounds somewhat esoteric and kind of boring, except you do have to understand that we are going to capture visual data. You're going to see the object in the sky, and if it's there, and you're going to see it in the infrared and in the ultraviolet as well. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing. And the science team that we have put together, these are former and current Lawrence Livermore guys. I mean, they're no slouches. These are the guys that get something on the moon or get something on Mars, and it works right the first time. You can't have something that you test, it didn't work the first time. No. If you're sending something to Mars, say, it's got to work right the first time and then stay working.
That's right.
And you can see how long the Spirit and Opportunity rovers lasted, right? They're still Opportunity is still going. And it's been years and years and years when it was supposed to have only lived 90 days. Now, that's testament to the fact that this thing was engineered really well.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where we're going. We want to engineer it really well, engineer our little platters. We want to make multiples of these and put them in various